When I married Jerry, I was lucky to inherit some property from my grandparents. They suggested I use it to secure our future but advised me to keep it a secret, even from Jerry. They thought it was wise to have some income that only I knew about, ensuring I would always be financially secure. Unfortunately, Jerry often crosses boundaries with possessions and finances. For example, he has tried to give away gifts from my parents to his parents to make himself look good. This upset me, especially when he reacted badly when confronted. Recently, a big issue arose. I discovered that $22,000 had been taken from an account meant for our living expenses. This account was supposed to support the income Jerry contributed. I didn't remember making such a large withdrawal, so I concluded that Jerry must have taken the money. When I asked him about it, he admitted he had lent the money to his mother, Kayla, without my knowledge. This was shocking because it showed a lack of communication and respect for our financial decisions. It made me rethink our relationship. If our marriage can't be built on mutual respect and honesty, especially about finances, we might need to consider our future together. The idea that one spouse can take what the other has without discussing it isn't sustainable. If this approach remains, we might have to consider separating. It's okay, I suppose. The money was mine that I earned. We have some savings, so the loss shouldn't be too bad. If Kayla was in trouble, I understand the need to help, but a simple conversation with me would have been appreciated. The account is ours after all. If Jerry had taken the money from a personal account he set up before we married, I would have minded, but not as much. Taking such a large amount from our shared account without discussion felt like a breach of trust. When I expressed my disappointment, Jerry was dismissive. He frowned, irritated, and reluctantly promised to inform me next time before taking such actions. He then quickly excused himself to the bathroom. This left me feeling uneasy. It wasn't like the early days of our marriage when Jerry would listen sincerely and value my input. Is this what change looks like in a marriage? A few days later, I went to my in-laws' home to deliver a package mistakenly sent to our address. My mother-in-law, Amy, greeted me warmly and invited me in for tea. I accepted, even though I just wanted to leave the package. While there, I noticed several luxurious items around their house: expensive cosmetics, stylish clothing, and various health products. Amy casually mentioned that these were gifts from Jerry. I realized that the $22,000 had been spent extravagantly. The casual way this spending was treated made me question not only our financial partnership, but also the respect and communication in our marriage. When I found out that Jerry had lent the money to his mother because she was in need, I tried to understand. However, seeing that the funds were spent on luxury items didn't sit well with me. As I sat quietly sipping my tea, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. My in-laws' smiles faded, and they looked at me with a mix of fear and accusation. "My son is such a wonderful, generous boy, always buying gifts for me," my mother-in-law started, her tone turning confrontational. "But what about you? As his wife, are you taking good care of my wonderful son? There seems to be some trouble. I hear he mentioned getting a lot of blame from you for using the money to help me." It became clear that Jerry had made himself look like a victim to his parents, a good son just helping his mother. This revelation exhausted my patience with my in-laws and with Jerry. I had never expected such a lack of support and understanding in my marriage, making me seriously consider divorce. I started imagining a future where, after a divorce, I would move back to my parents' home, a two-story house over 32 years old, designed before my brother was born. It used to house our family of 5 comfortably, but now stood largely empty and was becoming impractical for my aging parents, who struggled with mobility. The house had some modifications, like handrails, but its spacious layout was hard for them to navigate. A one-story house would be much better for them. With my financial security from the inherited property, I could rebuild their home to be more comfortable and accessible. Filled with a mix of resolve and relief, I called my parents to discuss my plans for a divorce and the idea of rebuilding their house. Surprisingly, my parents weren't shocked by the news. Their reaction only solidified my decision, as it seemed they too understood the need for a change, supporting my desire to start anew and build a better environment for our family. The news of rebuilding their home brought genuine joy to my parents. Over the phone, I could sense their happiness as they thanked me. "I'm glad that you're planning to rebuild it for us. Thank you," they said. They reassured me that even if they couldn't live there for long, it wouldn't be a problem, as I could eventually take over the house since it was funded by my income. "Well then, I'll start preparing and planning it bit by bit," I replied, encouraged by their support. "Take it easy, just don't overdo it," they advised, their words lifting my spirits instantly. As I began organizing the rebuild of my parents' house, I awaited a response from the construction company. However, before any progress was made, Jerry confronted me aggressively. "How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me anything about it?" he accused as we sat across from each other at the living room table. He banged his fist on the table, his voice rising without any regard for my feelings. "Well, my parents will live in the new house. I firmly stated that it was impossible because the house was meant for my parents. Jerry roared, insisting that since the house was built with what he thought was our shared property, his parents had a right to live in it too. "Are you planning to cram 5 people into that little one-story house? Just give me the house then," Jerry demanded, hitting the table louder. Worried about his reaction if he discovered the passive income I had kept secret, I decided it was time to reveal the whole truth. "To tell you the truth, I have passive income," I confessed. "I've been saving from the real estate gifted to me by my grandparents. I've paid for the rebuild with that passive income, so I didn't take a penny out of our common property." Feeling guilty for breaking a promise to my grandparents to keep this a secret, I watched as Jerry's reaction grew even more intense. He shook with anger and pounded the table harder. "What a bad wife you are, hiding the fact that you have an income. You play around with my money and protect your own by keeping secrets." His words stung, but they also clarified the deep issues in our marriage, issues of trust, respect, and shared goals, all of which seemed increasingly insurmountable. Seeing Jerry's face flush with rage, I suddenly grasped why my grandparents had advised me to keep my passive income a secret. Perhaps they had seen something in Jerry that I hadn't recognized until now. "I'll take the house as a lemony. Besides, any house you build while we're married is mine too. I am the head of the family, and if you disobey me, I will divorce you," he declared arrogantly. I was overwhelmed with dismay. How had I spent so many years with a man who could so easily disregard my feelings and contributions? Initially, I had planned to use the passive income for our future, especially if Jerry's earnings were insufficient, or if I was unable to work due to injury or illness. It was meant to be a safety net to support both of us, something I intended to share with him when the time was right. But now I no longer wished to use that money on him. Fed up, I stood up and left the house, needing space from the stifling atmosphere. I spent the night at a business hotel to clear my head and plan my next steps. Upon returning home the next morning, Jerry was waiting with a sly, unsettling smile. He approached me smirking and presented a sheet of paper he had been hiding. It was a set of divorce papers already filled out. "You're lying about your passive income, aren't you? You lied about it to hide that you were taking money from our shared property, didn't you?" he accused. His accusations were baseless and repetitive. Even though I was telling the truth and actually had passive income, he refused to believe me. "It's the truth. I have passive income," I insisted, but he wouldn't listen. Jerry's inability to trust and respect me was the last straw, making it clear that this marriage couldn't provide the support or partnership I needed. The next steps of legally separating our lives seemed unavoidable. Jerry shoved the divorce papers into my hand with a smirk and said, "You'll let me know when we can move in, okay?" He then patted me on the shoulder, walked out the door humming, and mentioned he was going out for a drink. At that moment, I saw who Jerry really was. Throughout our marriage, he had hidden his contempt for me, never truly valuing my feelings or perspectives. This realization hurt, but also set me free. I didn't waste any time. I packed up my things, filled out the divorce papers, and left our home right away. I moved in with my parents for now and explained everything to them. We agreed that I would stay with them until my new house was ready. The next day, my phone was filled with missed calls from Jerry, and he called again. I answered, hoping this would be our last conversation. "Hello." "Hey, all your stuff is gone, you know," he said, sounding confused and impatient. Why was he so worried? He was the one who wanted the divorce. "We're getting a divorce, so it's normal that I won't be coming back. Feel free to use the empty space however you like," I told him, trying to make my point clear. There was a pause. Maybe at that moment, Jerry realized I had income he couldn't control. Then, in a surprisingly sweet tone I had never heard before, he asked, "Can you let my parents live in the new house? I don't mind living with your parents, please." I was shocked. "I already told you it's a small one-story house," I reminded him. "It's meant as a surprise for my parents." His suggestion was ridiculous. He was trying to give away a house he didn't buy and acted like it was his to give. His disregard for the truth was puzzling. "You don't care about the savings, do you? You have no idea how much I worried about the money I gave you and what I saved for our living expenses," he continued. This conversation just confirmed my decision. Jerry's understanding of our finances and relationship was completely off. It was clear that moving forward without him was not just a choice but a necessity. As I tried to explain the effort I had put into managing our finances and making ends meet, he ignored the significance of my struggles. "That has nothing to do with what's happening here. You're just careless with money and leave all the hassle to others. And you act like you did everything yourself for your parents, right?" I confronted him, pointing out how he often took credit for my hard work. Jerry's sudden silence only added to my frustration. It was clear he was trying to take credit for everything and wanted to give the house I built for my parents to his own family, using my honesty to impress them. It was shallow and deceitful. "In the end, you're just trying to take advantage of my kindness and claim my property." There's no way to justify you trampling on my feelings and intentions like this. I won't give you the house I built with all my heart for my parents just so you can show off, I said firmly, rejecting his request outright. Jerry got louder, maybe out of desperation. But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I'll tell everyone that you built it, please. We're not a married couple anymore, are we? We're strangers now since I've already filed for divorce, I reminded him, making it clear that the boundaries had to be respected. On the day Jerry gave me the divorce papers, I submitted them to the city office right away. He had been the one pushing for the divorce, but when it became real, he seemed shocked. Yeah, you already filed it. Why are you surprised when you're the one who wanted the divorce? Oh, I didn't think you'd actually leave me. Let's start over. Let's talk it out and try to be a good couple this time, he pleaded, as if he didn't grasp the seriousness of his actions. How could he say this now? This was the same man who had wasted our savings on his mother, threatened me with divorce, and mocked me until the end. There was no chance for reconciliation. No, thank you. Please give my regards to your parents, I said cheerfully before ending the call. The next day, my phone was bombarded with voicemails and messages from Jerry, still insisting that we get back together. His persistence was confusing and unwelcome, confirming my decision to move on without him. Jerry claimed we could start over and that he loved me, but I felt he was more interested in my property and money than in our relationship. To cut ties completely, I blocked all his contact information and that of his parents. Meanwhile, the new house was finished, and my parents and I moved in. We're now living comfortably in the home I built. Later, I met with a mutual friend who also knew Jerry and shared the news of our divorce. My friend offered sympathy and updated me on what had happened with Jerry and his family. It turned out that Jerry had suddenly quit his job, saying he no longer needed to work hard because he had real estate. However, his company was left in a difficult spot because they couldn't reach him. The next day, Jerry tried to take back his resignation, but his bosses, frustrated by his sudden disappearance and the trouble it caused, gave him a stern lecture. They demanded an explanation, but Jerry, unable to admit he had been relying on my income, lied about his situation. Eventually, the truth about our divorce came out, and his lies were exposed. His company refused to rehire him, realizing he had tried to manipulate the situation. Jerry, who had previously mocked my passive income, was now in a tough spot. He moved back in with his parents, who were understandably upset, and is now struggling to find a new job due to his questionable departure from his last job. It seems he's facing the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, my life has taken a positive turn. I'm living with my parents in the house I built, working in a job I love, and enjoying life. The passive income I had saved for our future will now support those who have truly stood by me. This new chapter has brought me a sense of renewal and peace, confirming that moving on was the best decision for my well-being.
The sound of shattering glass jolted me from my sleep. My heart raced as I fumbled for my phone, squinting at the bright screen. 3:17 a.m. I held my breath, straining to hear any movement downstairs. Silence, then a muffled curse. "Elliot," I whispered, shaking my son's shoulder. "Wake up, sweetie. We need to be very quiet." His eyes fluttered open, confusion quickly replaced by fear as he registered my urgency. I pressed a finger to my lips and guided him to the closet, tucking him behind a row of hanging clothes. "Stay here. Don't make a sound. I'll be right back." I crept down the hallway, my bare feet silent on the carpet. As I neared the stairs, a familiar voice drifted up from the living room. "Where's the damn thing?" "Sean, my ex-husband and the last person I wanted in my house at this hour. Or any hour, for that matter." I descended the stairs slowly, my hand trailing the wall for support. The living room was a mess, cushions strewn about and drawers pulled open. Sean stood in the center, swaying slightly as he rifled through a stack of papers on the coffee table. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, flicking on the lights. Sean spun around, his bloodshot eyes wide with surprise. "Olivia, I needed to get something." "At 3 a.m? You broke in." He waved a dismissive hand. "Don't be so dramatic. I still have a key." "Which I told you to return months ago." You're trespassing, Sean." He stumbled toward me, and I caught a whiff of alcohol. "Come on, Liv. I just need some cash for Elliot's birthday present." I laughed bitterly. "Elliot's birthday was 2 months ago. You didn't even call." Sean's face darkened. "I've been busy. Things have been complicated." "Complicated? Is that what you call gambling away your paycheck and shacking up with that waitress from Denny's?" His eyes narrowed. "How did small town, Sean? People talk." I crossed my arms, steeling myself. "I want you out of this house. Now." He took another step closer, his voice low and threatening. "Not until I get what I came for." "There's nothing here for you," I spat. "Leave or I'm calling the cops." Sean's hand shot out, gripping my arm painfully. "You wouldn't dare." A small voice came from the top of the stairs. "Mom?" We both turned to see Elliot, his eyes wide with fear. Sean's grip loosened. "Hey, buddy," he said, his tone suddenly jovial. "Dad's just visiting. Go back to bed." I wrenched my arm free. "Elliot, go to your room and lock the door. Now." Sean's face contorted with anger. "Don't you dare turn my son against me." "You've done that all on your own," I shot back. He lunged forward, but his drunken state made him clumsy. I sidestepped easily, and he stumbled into the coffee table, sending it crashing to the floor. "That's it," I said, grabbing my phone. "I'm calling the police." Sean struggled to his feet, panic replacing anger. "Wait, Liv, please. I'm sorry, okay? I'll go." I paused, my finger hovering over the call button. "This is the last time, Sean. If you ever come here again, I'll file for a restraining order." He nodded, backing towards the door. "I get it. I'll make things right." As the door closed behind him, I sank onto the couch, my hands shaking. Elliot's tentative footsteps on the stairs made me look up. "Is Dad gone?" he asked, his voice small. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, sweetie, he's gone. Everything's okay now." But as I held my son close, I knew nothing was okay. Sean's intrusion had shattered more than just my sense of security. It had confirmed my worst fears about how far he'd fallen and how much danger he might pose to our son. I needed a plan, and I knew just who to call for help. I paced the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the endless ringing. "Come on, Isabel," I muttered. "Pick up." Finally, a click. "Hello." Isabel's voice was groggy with sleep. "Isabel, it's Olivia. I'm sorry to call so early, but it's about Sean." There was a sharp intake of breath. "What's he done now?" I recounted the night's events, my voice shaking. As I spoke, I could hear Isabel's breathing quicken. "That boy," she said when I finished. "I thought I'd raised him better than this." "It's not your fault, Isabel. Sean makes his own choices." She sighed heavily. "Maybe, but I can't help feeling responsible. What can I do to help?" I hesitated. I hate to ask, but I need to protect Elliot. Sean's spiraling, and I'm afraid he'll do something drastic. "Say no more," Isabel said firmly. "I'm on the next flight out." Relief washed over me. "Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you." After we hung up, I found Elliot in the living room, half-heartedly picking up the mess Sean had left behind. "Hey, sweetie," I said, kneeling beside him. "How are you feeling?" He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Is Dad coming back?" My heart clenched. "I don't think so, honey. Not for a while." Elliot nodded, his little face scrunched in concentration. "Good," he said finally. "He scared you." I pulled him into a hug, blinking back tears. "I'm okay, Elliot. We're going to be just fine." The next day passed in a blur of work and worry. I jumped at every noise, half expecting Sean to come crashing through the door again. By the time I picked up Elliot from school, my nerves were frayed. As we pulled into the driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked across the street. A woman sat in the driver's seat, her gaze fixed on our house. "Elliot, go inside and start your homework," I said, keeping my voice light. "I'll be right there." I approached the car, my heart pounding. The woman rolled down her window, revealing a face I'd only seen in Facebook photos. "Rachel," I said, crossing my arms. "What are you doing here?" Sean's girlfriend had the decency to look uncomfortable. I needed to talk to you about Sean." "There's nothing to talk about." I snapped. "He broke into my house last night. He's lucky I didn't press charges." Rachel's eyes widened. "He what? Oh God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "What did you think would happen when you got involved with an addict?" She flinched. "I thought I could help him, but things have gotten complicated." A chill ran down my spine. "Complicated how?" Rachel glanced around nervously. "Sean's in trouble. Big trouble. He owes some dangerous people a lot of money." "That's not my problem anymore," I said, turning to leave. "Wait," Rachel called. "They know about Elliot. They've been asking questions." I froze, fear gripping my heart. "What kind of questions?" "About his school, his routine. I think they might try to use him to get to Sean." The world tilted beneath my feet. I gripped the car door to steady myself. "Why are you telling me this?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Because I realized I'm in over my head, and because no child should suffer for their parents' mistakes." I nodded, my mind racing. "Thank you for the warning. Now I need you to leave and never come near my family again." As Rachel drove away, I hurried inside, my hands shaking as I locked the door. Elliot looked up from his homework, his brow furrowed with concern. "Mom, what's wrong?" I forced a smile. "Nothing, sweetie, just a little tired." I glanced at the clock. "Grandma Isabel should be here soon. Why don't we make her favorite cookies to welcome her?" As Elliot cheered and ran to the kitchen, I leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths. Isabel couldn't get here fast enough. We needed a plan, and we needed it now. The stakes had just gotten much, much higher. The moment Isabel walked through the door, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Her familiar perfume enveloped me as we hugged, and for a brief moment, I felt like a child again, safe and protected. "Oh, Olivia," she said, pulling back to look at me. "You look exhausted, dear." I managed a weak smile. "It's been a rough couple of days." Elliot barreled into the room, throwing himself at his grandmother. "Grandma Izzy?" Isabel's face lit up as she scooped him into her arms. "There's my little man. My, you've grown." As Elliot chattered away about school and his latest art projects, I caught Isabel's eye. She nodded, understanding the unspoken message. We needed to talk. Once Elliot was settled in bed, Isabel and I sat at the kitchen table, mugs of tea steaming between us. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice gentle but firm. I recounted Sean's break-in and Rachel's warning, my hands shaking as I spoke. Isabel listened intently, her brow furrowing deeper with each word. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We'll fix this, Olivia. I have an idea, but it's not going to be easy." "At this point, I'm willing to try anything," I said. Isabel took a deep breath. "I'm going to offer Sean money. A lot of money, enough to pay off his debts and then some." I blinked in surprise. "Isabel, that's incredibly generous, but—" She held up a hand. "There's a catch. In exchange, he'll sign away his parental rights, completely and irrevocably." The weight of her words hung in the air between us. "Do you think he'd actually do it?" I whispered. "For the right amount, yes, I do." Isabel's voice was heavy with sadness. "My son has proven time and time again that money means more to him than family." As much as it pained me to admit it, I knew she was right. "Okay," I said, "let's do it." The next morning, we put our plan into action. Isabel made the call while I paced nervously in the living room, Elliot safely at school. "He agreed to meet," Isabel said as she hung up. "This afternoon at the diner on Main Street." My stomach churned. I should be there. Isabel shook her head. "No, dear, it's better if I handle this alone. Sean's more likely to let his guard down with me." As much as I hated it, I knew she was right. The hours crawled by. I jumped at every sound, half expecting Sean to burst through the door at any moment. When my phone finally rang, I nearly dropped it in my haste to answer. "It's done," Isabel said, her voice tight. "He signed the papers." Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by a wave of guilt. How did he seem? There was a long pause, desperate, relieved, and completely unrepentant. Isabel's voice cracked. "He didn't even ask about Elliot." My heart ached for her. "I'm so sorry, Isabel. You shouldn't have had to do that." "No, I'm glad I did," she said firmly. "It needed to be done, for Elliot's sake." As we said our goodbyes, a noise outside caught my attention. I peered through the window, my blood running cold at what I saw. A black SUV was parked across the street, 2 men in dark suits standing beside it. As I watched, one of them pointed at our house. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The debt isn't settled. We know where the kid is." Panic gripped me. I ran to the door, fumbling with the locks, but as I yanked it open, ready to race to the school, I came face to face with Sean. His eyes were wild, his clothes disheveled. "Olivia," he gasped, "you have to help me. They're going to kill me." Behind him, I saw the men from the SUV approaching, their hands reaching inside their jackets. My mind raced. In that split second, I had to decide, slam the door on Sean and call the police, or let him in and potentially endanger Elliot. The choice I made would change everything. The weeks following Sean's desperate appearance at my doorstep were a blur of fear, exhaustion, and constant vigilance. I'd slammed the door in his face that day, my maternal instincts overriding any lingering sympathy. The men in suits had dragged him away, his pleas fading as I called the police with shaking hands. Now, as I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills before me, I felt the weight of our new reality pressing down. The extra security measures, new locks, an alarm system, even self-defense classes had drained my savings. But I'd do it all again in a heartbeat to keep Elliot safe. A gentle ping from my laptop pulled me from my thoughts. Isabel's smiling face appeared on the screen, a welcome sight after so many sleepless nights. "Olivia, dear, how are you holding up?" I managed a weak smile. "We're managing, Isabel. How about you?" Her eyes crinkled with concern. "Oh, don't you worry about me. I'm more interested in how my grandson is doing." As if on cue, Elliot bounded into the room, his face lighting up at the sight of his grandmother. "Grandma Izzy!" For a few precious minutes I watched them chat, Elliot's laughter filling the room as Isabel regaled him with stories of her garden. It was moments like these that made all the struggle worthwhile. Once Elliot had run off to play, Isabel's expression turned serious. "Any word from Sean?" I shook my head. "Nothing since that day. The police say he's in the wind." Isabel sighed heavily. "I should have known the money wouldn't be enough. Olivia, I've been thinking that perhaps it's time for a fresh start, for all of us." My breath caught in my throat. "What do you mean?" "I have a summer house up in Maine. It's secluded, peaceful. Maybe you and Elliot could use a change of scenery. And, well, I wouldn't mind the company either." The offer hung in the air, tempting and terrifying all at once. Leave everything behind? Start over? I don't know, Isabel. My job, Elliot's school. She waved a hand dismissively. "Details, my dear. All solvable problems. Just promise me you'll think about it?" I nodded, my mind already racing with possibilities. After we said our goodbyes, I sat in silence, weighing our options. The idea of escape was intoxicating, but could I really uproot Elliot's life? A sharp knock at the door shattered my reverie. My heart leapt into my throat as I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Rachel stood on my porch, looking haggard and afraid. Against my better judgment, I opened the door a crack. "What are you doing here?" "Please," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously. "I need your help. Sean's in trouble. Real trouble this time." I started to close the door, but her next words froze me in place. "They're going to kill him, Olivia. And then they're coming for Elliot." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" Rachel's voice trembled. "The men Sean owes, they're not just loan sharks, they're human traffickers, and they think Elliot could fetch a good price." The world tilted beneath my feet. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself, bile rising in my throat. "Why should I believe you?" I managed to choke out. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Because I've seen their operation. I've been helping Sean hide, but I can't do it anymore. I'm in too deep." My mind raced, weighing the risks. If Rachel was telling the truth, Elliot was in far more danger than I'd ever imagined. "But if it was a trap, please," Rachel begged. "I know I have no right to ask, but help us, for Elliot's sake." In that moment, I knew my decision would change everything. The safe, quiet life I'd been building for Elliot and myself hung in the balance. But could I live with myself if I turned my back on this threat, no matter how remote? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Get inside," I said, opening the door wider. "Tell me everything." As Rachel stepped over the threshold, I silently prayed I wasn't making the biggest mistake of my life. The familiar chime of an incoming video call filled my living room. I settled in front of the laptop, eager to see Isabel's face. These calls had become a lifeline for both of us, a moment of normalcy in the chaos our lives had become. "Olivia, dear," Isabel's warm smile filled the screen. "How are you and Elliot holding up?" I forced a smile. "We're managing, Isabel. How about you? How was your doctor's appointment?" A flicker of confusion crossed her face. "Doctor's appointment? Oh, yes. It was fine, I think." My heart sank. This wasn't the first time Isabel had forgotten something important. I glanced at the sticky note I'd placed on the corner of my screen. "Ask about memory test results." "Isabel," I said gently, "do you remember what the doctor said about your memory?" She frowned, her eyes darting away from the camera. I'm not sure. It's all a bit fuzzy." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "The doctor mentioned some concerns, remember? They wanted to run some tests." Recognition dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by fear. "Oh, Olivia, I'm slipping, aren't I?" Tears pricked at my eyes. "We don't know anything for sure yet, but we'll face it together, okay?" Isabel nodded, visibly pulling herself together. "Of course, dear. Now let me see my grandson." I called Elliot over, watching as his animated chatter brought the light back to Isabel's eyes. But as he regaled her with tales of his latest school project, I noticed her struggling to follow along, asking the same questions multiple times. After Elliot bounded off to play, Isabel's facade crumbled. "I'm scared, Olivia," she whispered. "What if I forget him? What if I forget you?" "We won't let that happen," I said firmly, even as doubt gnawed at me. "We'll figure this out." As we said our goodbyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were losing Isabel, bit by bit. The one person who had stood by us through everything, who had helped us escape Sean's destructive influence, was now facing a battle of her own. I was so lost in thought that I almost missed the notification popping up on my screen. An email from an unknown address with a subject line that made my blood run cold. "We know where the boy is." With shaking hands, I opened the message. Inside was a single image, a photo of Elliot on the playground at his school taken earlier that day. Below it, a message: "The debt isn't settled. Meet us, or the kid pays." Panic clawed at my throat. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the police, when another email arrived. This one contained a video. My finger hovered over the play button, dread pooling in my stomach. Sean's battered face filled the screen. "Olivia," he croaked, "I'm so sorry. They have me. They'll come for Elliot next. You have to run. Take him and go. Please, protect our son." The video cut off abruptly, leaving me staring at my own horrified reflection in the dark screen. My mind raced. We couldn't stay here. That much was clear. But where could we go? Who could we trust? Isabel's offer of her summer house in Maine suddenly seemed like a lifeline. Secluded, far from here, a place where we could regroup and plan our next move. But could I uproot Elliot's life so suddenly? And what about Isabel? In her deteriorating condition, could she handle such a drastic change? The sound of a car door slamming outside jolted me from my thoughts. I peered through the curtains, my heart pounding as I saw two men in dark suits approaching our front door. In that moment, I knew I was out of time. Whatever decision I made would change our lives forever. Stay and face whatever was coming, or run and leave everything behind. The doorbell rang, its cheerful tone a stark contrast to the terror gripping my heart. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. It was time to choose. The video call with Isabel had just ended, but something felt off. I moved to close the laptop when I realized Isabel's camera was still on. She must have forgotten to end the call on her end. I was about to disconnect when a movement caught my eye. A shadowy figure crept into Isabel's living room, careful to stay out of her line of sight. My heart stopped as I recognized the intruder, Sean. "Isabel?" I shouted, forgetting for a moment that she couldn't hear me. I watched helplessly as Sean rifled through drawers, pocketing what looked like jewelry and cash. Frantically, I dialed Isabel's number, praying she'd pick up. On the screen, I saw her reach for her phone, confusion etched on her face. "Olivia, didn't we just talk?" "Isabel, listen to me," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Sean is in your house. He's stealing from you. Call the police right now." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then, "What?" "No, that's impossible. Sean wouldn't." A crash echoed through the phone and the video feed. Sean had knocked over a lamp, startled by Isabel's voice. Our eyes met through the camera, and for a second I saw the desperate, cornered look of a man with nothing left to lose. "Mom?" Sean's voice was shaky. "I can explain." "Get out!" Isabel's scream was filled with a fury I'd never heard from her before. "Get out of my house, you thief!" Sean bolted for the door, but not before grabbing a small safe from the bookshelf. My blood ran cold. I knew that safe contained Isabel's most valuable possessions and important documents. "Isabel, call the police now," I shouted. "I'm on my way." I ended the call and raced for my car, my mind whirling. How long had Sean been stealing from his own mother? Was this why she'd been so forgetful lately, constantly misplacing things? As I sped towards Isabel's house, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Got what I needed. The kid's next. You can't protect him forever." Terror gripped me. I'd been so focused on Isabel, I'd left Elliot vulnerable. I called my neighbor, begging her to check on him at his after-school program. Screeching into Isabel's driveway, I found her sitting on the front steps, looking shell-shocked. Police cars surrounded the house, their lights painting the quiet street in surreal flashes of red and blue. "Oh, Olivia," Isabel sobbed as I wrapped her in a hug. "How could he do this? My own son." Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was my neighbor. Olivia, Elliot's not at the community center. They said a man claiming to be his uncle picked him up an hour ago. The world tilted beneath my feet. Sean had Elliot. All this, the break-in, the theft, it had been a distraction. A detective approached us, his face grim. "Ma'am, we've got an APB out on your ex-husband, but I need to ask you some questions." I nodded numbly, my mind racing. How could I have been so blind? I'd thought cutting Sean out of our lives would solve everything, but I'd underestimated his desperation. And his cunning. As I recounted everything to the detective, a terrible realization dawned on me. Sean wasn't just running from debt now. He was running from the law, with my son as his hostage and bargaining chip. My phone buzzed again, another text, "Meet me at the old factory. Come alone, or you'll never see the kid again." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Every instinct screamed at me to tell the police, to let them handle this. But I knew Sean. He was unpredictable, dangerous, if he felt cornered. I looked at Isabel, still shaken on the steps, then at the detective waiting expectantly for more information. In that moment, I had to make an impossible choice. Trust the authorities to save my son, or take matters into my own hands and risk everything. The weight of the decision pressed down on me like a physical force. Whatever I chose, there would be no going back. Elliot's life hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. My heart pounded as I approached the old factory, its dilapidated structure looming against the darkening sky. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to let the police handle this. But the thought of Elliot, scared and alone with Sean, propelled me forward. I'd managed to slip away from Isabel's house, leaving a vague note about following a lead. The guilt of lying to her and the police gnawed at me, but I couldn't risk Sean doing something desperate if he saw cops. As I neared the entrance, a figure emerged from the shadows, Rachel, Sean's girlfriend, her face pale and drawn. "Olivia," she whispered, "I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." I brushed past her. "Where's my son?" She grabbed my arm. "Wait, you need to know Sean's not alone. The men he owes money to, they're here too. They're dangerous." "Olivia." Cold fear gripped me. "What do they want?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "They want Elliot to sell him, to cover Sean's debts." The world tilted beneath my feet, human trafficking, my worst nightmare come to life. "Where are they?" I demanded, my voice barely recognizable. Rachel pointed towards a back entrance. "Third floor, but Olivia, you can't go alone. We should call the police." I was already moving, her pleas fading behind me. As I climbed the rusted stairs, I dialed 911, leaving the line open in my pocket. If nothing else, they'd trace the call. Voices drifted down the hallway as I reached the third floor. I crept closer, my heart in my throat. "Just a kid, man. This wasn't the deal." Sean's voice, trembling, a deeper voice responded, "The deal is whatever we say it is. You owe us, and the kid will fetch a good price." "Mom." Elliot's cry pierced the air, followed by the sound of a slap. Something in me snapped. I burst through the door, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The scene before me was chaos. Sean, bloody and bruised, stood between two menacing men and Elliot, who was tied to a chair. Another man held a gun, swinging it between Sean and my son. "Let him go," I snarled, surprising myself with the ferocity in my voice. The man with the gun turned, his eyes cold. Well, Mommy's here to save the day." Sean's eyes widened. "Olivia, run! Get out of here!" But I stood my ground. "I'm not leaving without my son." The gunman smirked. "Noble. Stupid, but noble. Here's the deal, lady. Your ex here owes us a lot of money. The kid's our insurance." "Take me instead," I said, my mind racing. I just needed to stall until the police arrived. "I'm worth more. I can work, pay off Sean's debt." One of the other men laughed. "Oh, we could definitely find a use for you." Elliot whimpered, and I met his terrified eyes. "It's okay, baby," I soothed. "Mommy's here." Suddenly, Sean lunged at the gunman. The gun went off, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. I screamed, rushing towards Elliot. Everything happened in a blur. More gunshots rang out. I reached Elliot, shielding him with my body. Glass shattered as figures in tactical gear rappelled through the windows. "Police! Freeze!" Relief washed over me as I untied Elliot, pulling him close. But as the chaos settled, I realized Sean wasn't moving, blood pooling beneath him. "Daddy?" Elliot's small voice broke through the commotion. I turned him away, my mind reeling. Sean, for all his faults, had tried to save us in the end. But at what cost? As paramedics swarmed in and police secured the scene, I clung to Elliot, the weight of everything that had happened crashing down on me. We were safe, but nothing would ever be the same. The detective from earlier approached, his face grim. "Ma'am, we need to talk about your ex-husband. And there's something you should know about his mother." My blood ran cold. What more could possibly go wrong? The sterile hospital corridor seemed to stretch endlessly before me as I made my way to Sean's room. Elliot's small hand clutched mine tightly, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion. I'd debated bringing him, but in the end, I knew he needed this closure as much as I did. Outside Sean's room, Isabel sat in a wheelchair, her face a mask of grief and anger. The doctors had insisted she remain seated after her collapse upon hearing the news of Sean's involvement in Elliot's kidnapping. "Are you sure about this?" Isabel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, steeling myself. "We need answers, all of us." As we entered, Sean's eyes fluttered open. He looked small and broken in the hospital bed, tubes and wires snaking around him. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, before addiction and desperation had twisted him into someone unrecognizable. "Olivia," he croaked. "Elliot, Mom, I'm so sorry." Isabel wheeled herself to his bedside, her eyes flashing. "Sorry doesn't begin to cover it, Sean. You stole from me. You put your own son in danger. How could you?" Sean's face crumpled. "I never meant for any of this to happen. The gambling, the debts, it all spiraled out of control. I thought I could fix it, but you couldn't," I finished for him. "And instead of asking for help, you dragged us all into your mess." Elliot, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. "Why did you take me, Dad? I was scared." Sean's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, buddy. I wasn't thinking straight. I thought if I had you with me, I could figure something out. But those men, they had other plans. I never would have let them hurt you, I swear." I felt a surge of anger. "You shouldn't have put him in that position in the first place, Sean. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" Sean looked away, unable to meet our eyes. "I know I've ruined everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you all to know the truth about everything." Over the next hour, Sean laid bare the full extent of his addiction, the depths of his debts, and the desperate measures he'd taken. With each revelation, I felt a mix of horror and pity. The man before us was a shell of the person we'd once known. As Sean's strength waned, Isabel spoke up, her voice firm despite the tears in her eyes. "I can't do this anymore, Sean. I love you, but I can't watch you destroy yourself and hurt the people around you. When you get out of here, you're on your own." Sean nodded, a look of resignation on his face. "I understand. I don't deserve your help, any of you." I took a deep breath, knowing what I had to say next. "Sean, I'm filing for full custody of Elliot, and I'm getting a restraining order. Until you can prove you're clean and stable, you can't be a part of our lives." To my surprise, Sean didn't argue. "It's for the best," he said softly. "Elliot deserves better than what I can give him right now." As we prepared to leave, Elliot hesitated. Then, in a move that brought tears to my eyes, he hugged his father. "Get better, Dad," he whispered. In the weeks that followed, our lives slowly began to rebuild. Isabel, with proper medical care, showed improvement in her memory and overall health. She moved closer to us, becoming a constant, loving presence in Elliot's life. As for me, I found strength I never knew I had. The ordeal had tested me in ways I never imagined, but it had also shown me the depths of my resilience and love for my son. One evening, as Elliot, Isabel, and I sat around the dinner table, laughing and sharing stories, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. We had weathered the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. Looking at my son's smiling face and Isabel's contented expression, I knew that despite the pain and hardship, we had found our way to a new beginning. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but with love, honesty, and the unbreakable bonds we'd forged, I was certain we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I tucked Elliot into bed that night, he looked up at me with those wise eyes of his. "Mom," he said softly, "are we going to be okay now?" I smiled, my heart full. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be more than okay. We're going to be wonderful." And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it.
My name is Lydia Hargrove, and I never thought I'd be the one holding my family together with duct tape and sheer willpower. But here I am, 31 years old, juggling a high-stakes career and a sister's wedding while our father spirals into a midlife crisis that threatens to derail everything. Lydia, do you think Dad will even remember to show up? Mona's voice cracks, her eyes pleading for reassurance. I squeeze her hand, forcing a smile. Of course he will. I'll make sure of it. The lie tastes bitter on my tongue, but I swallow it down. What else can I say? That our father, Randall Hargrove, is more likely to show up drunk with his new girlfriend than walk Mona down the aisle with any semblance of dignity. You're a terrible liar, Mona sighs, but there's a hint of a smile. But thanks for trying. We're sitting in a trendy bridal boutique, surrounded by tulle and sequins. Mona looks stunning in a fitted mermaid gown, but the worry lines creasing her forehead mar the effect. Hey, I say, standing up and smoothing out the skirt of her dress. This is your day. Let me worry about Dad, okay? You focus on marrying that hunky fiancé of yours. Mona's cheeks flush. Ben's been so patient with all this family drama. I don't know how I got so lucky. Because you deserve it, I tell her firmly. Now, twirl for me one more time. I think this is the one. As Mona spins, my phone buzzes. Dad's name flashes on the screen, and my stomach drops. I step away, answering with a hushed, "Hello." "Lydia, sweetheart." His voice is too loud, too cheerful. I can practically smell the whiskey through the phone. I need a tiny favor. I pinch the bridge of my nose. "Dad, I'm with Mona. We're picking out her wedding dress. Remember?" "Oh, right, he slurs. Listen, Carmen and I are in a bit of a pickle. Could you wire us some cash? Just a couple grand to tide us over." The boutique suddenly feels too small, too warm. "Dad, we've talked about this. I can't keep bailing you out. What happened to the money from selling the lake house?" There's a long pause, then a woman's voice in the background. "Carmen." My skin crawls at the sound of her throaty laugh. "Never mind, pumpkin," Dad says quickly. "We'll figure something out. Tell Mona I love her." The line goes dead before I can respond. I stare at the phone, a familiar mix of anger and helplessness churning in my gut. "Everything okay?" Mona calls from the dressing room. I plaster on another fake smile. "Just work stuff. Nothing important." As I help Mona out of the dress, my mind races. How did we get here? A year ago, we were a normal, mostly functional family. Now, Dad's drinking has spiraled out of control. He's blown through his savings, and this Carmen woman has her claws in deep. "Earth to Lydia." Mona waves a hand in front of my face. "Where'd you go?" I blink, focusing on her concerned expression. "Sorry, just thinking about the guest list." "Hey, why don't we grab lunch?" My treat. Over salads at a nearby cafe, I try to steer the conversation to happier topics, but Mona isn't easily distracted. "You talked to Dad, didn't you?" she asks, pushing a cherry tomato around her plate. I hesitate, then nod. "He says he loves you." Mona's eyes narrow. "And? What else?" "And nothing." I lie smoothly. "He's excited for the wedding." "Lydia." Mona's voice is soft but firm. "You don't have to protect me. I'm not a kid anymore." I meet her gaze, seeing the strength there. Maybe it's time to stop shielding her from the ugly truth. "He wanted money," I admit. Again. Mona's shoulders slump. "For Carmen?" "Probably," I sigh. "I don't know what her game is, but I'm going to find out. I promise you, Mona, I won't let them ruin your big day." As I say the words, a fierce determination settles over me. Whatever Carmen's up to, whatever hole Dad's dug himself into, I'll fix it. I have to. For Mona, for our family, and for the little girl inside me who still believes in happy endings. I slam my apartment door shut, kicking off my heels with a frustrated groan. The weight of the day, Mona's wedding dress fitting, Dad's drunken phone call, settles on my shoulders like a lead blanket. Rough day. Ethan's voice drifts from the kitchen, followed by the heavenly aroma of garlic and tomato sauce. "You have no idea," I mutter, padding into the kitchen. Ethan stands at the stove, stirring a pot of pasta. He turns, pulling me into a warm embrace. "Want to talk about it?" he asks, pressing a kiss to my forehead. I sigh, melting into his arms for a moment before pulling away. "I need to call Nina first." This Carmen situation is getting out of hand. Ethan nods, understanding in his eyes. I'll keep dinner warm. Take your time. I retreat to our bedroom, phone already in hand. Nina picks up on the second ring. Lydia, I was just about to call you. You're not going to believe what I found out about Carmen. My heart races.
Spill it, Nina.
What did you dig up? Remember how your dad met her at that charity gala? Well, it turns out she's made quite a habit of cozying up to wealthy older men at these events. I found 3 different aliases she's used in the past 5 years alone. I sink onto the bed, my suspicions confirmed. Go on. Each time, she gets involved with a man going through some kind of personal crisis, divorce, health scare, you name it. She worms her way in, gains their trust, and then… Nina pauses for dramatic effect. And then what? I prompt, impatient. She bleeds them dry, Lydia. Bank accounts drained, assets mysteriously transferred. One guy even lost his house. A chill runs down my spine.
Ogo, Nina.
What are we going to do? We. Nina's voice is gentle. Lydia, I love you, but this is your family. You need to decide how to handle this. I close my eyes, fighting back tears. I know. I don't know how to make Dad see reason. He's so caught up in her. Maybe it's time for some tough love, Nina suggests. Confront him with the evidence. Make him face reality. And if he doesn't listen? I ask, voice barely above a whisper. Then you protect yourself and Mona. You can't set yourself on fire to keep him warm, Lydia. We talk for a few more minutes, strategizing and commiserating. By the time I hang up, a plan is forming in my mind. It's risky, but I have to try. I rejoin Ethan in the kitchen, the aroma of dinner momentarily distracting me from my worries. Everything okay? He asks, setting a plate of pasta in front of me. I shake my head. Not even close. But I think I know what I need to do. As we eat, I fill Ethan in on Nina's discoveries and my plan to confront Dad and Carmen. His brow furrows with concern. Are you sure that's safe? This woman sounds dangerous, Lydia. I don't have a choice, I insist. If I don't do something, she'll bleed Dad dry and probably break his heart in the process. Not to mention what it would do to Mona if he can't walk her down the aisle because he's penniless and drunk. Ethan reaches across the table, squeezing my hand. Okay, but I'm coming with you when you confront them. No arguments. I nod, grateful for his support. Tomorrow, I decide. We'll go to Dad's place tomorrow and lay it all out. That night, sleep eludes me. I toss and turn, imagining all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. What if Dad refuses to listen? What if Carmen lashes out? What if I'm too late and she's already taken everything? As dawn breaks, I rise, exhausted but determined. I dress carefully, armor for the battle ahead. Ethan and I drive to Dad's house in tense silence. We pull up to find Carmen's flashy sports car in the driveway. My stomach churns. Ready? Ethan asks, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. I take a deep breath, steeling myself. As I'll ever be. We approach the front door, and I raise my hand to knock. This is it. The moment of truth. Whatever happens next will change everything, for better or worse. I knock. The door swings open, revealing my father's disheveled form. His eyes are bloodshot, his shirt wrinkled. The smell of stale alcohol wafts out. Lydia, he slurs, squinting against the morning light. What are you doing here? I steel myself, pushing past him into the house. We need to talk, Dad. All of us. Ethan follows close behind, his presence a comforting anchor. We make our way to the living room, where Carmen lounges on the couch, looking far too comfortable in my childhood home. Well, isn't this a surprise? She purrs, her eyes narrowing. To what do we owe the pleasure? I ignore her, focusing on my father. Dad, please sit down. There's something important we need to discuss. He sinks into his armchair, confusion etched across his face. What's going on, sweetheart? I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's to come. It's about Carmen, Dad. She's not who you think she is. Carmen's laugh is sharp, cutting. Oh, honey, is this really necessary? Shut up. I snap, surprising even myself with the venom in my voice. I turn back to my father, softening my tone. Dad, we've found out some things about Carmen's past. She's done this before, getting close to vulnerable men, manipulating them, draining their bank accounts. My father's face clouds with anger. That's ridiculous. Carmen loves me. She would never dash. It's true, Ethan interjects, his voice calm and steady. We have proof, Mr. Hargrove. Multiple aliases, a trail of broken men and empty bank accounts. Carmen stands abruptly, her facade cracking. You don't know what you're talking about. Randall, don't listen to them. They're just jealous of what we have. I pull out a folder, hands shaking slightly. These are police reports, Dad. Bank statements. Carmen Santiago, Carmen Rodriguez, Carmen Vasquez. All the same woman. All with the same MO. My father's face pales as he flips through the documents. Carmen's eyes dart between us, calculating her next move. Randall, baby, she coos, reaching for him. You know me. You know this can't be true. He jerks away from her touch, looking lost and small. I don't know what to believe. Believe your daughters, I plead. Think about Mona's wedding. Do you really want to show up drunk? Or worse, not show up at all because this woman has bled you dry? At the mention of Mona, something shifts in my father's eyes. He looks up at Carmen, really seeing her for the first time. Is it true? He whispers. Carmen's mask slips, revealing a flash of cold fury before she composes herself. Of course not, darling. Your daughter is clearly troubled, perhaps jealous that you found happiness again after her mother dash. Don't you dare, I snarl, stepping towards her. Ethan's hand on my arm holds me back. My father stands slowly, his voice trembling. I think you should leave, Carmen. Randall, please, she starts, but he cuts her off.
Now.
Get out of my house. For a moment, I think she might argue, but something in my father's face stops her. She grabs her purse, shooting me a venomous glare. You'll regret this, she hisses as she stalks past. The door slams behind her, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. My father collapses back into his chair, head in his hands. I've been such a fool, he mumbles. I kneel beside him, my anger melting into concern. It's okay, Dad. She fooled a lot of people. The important thing is that she's gone now. He looks up at me, eyes brimming with tears. How can I ever make this right? With you, with Mona? I take his hand, squeezing gently. One day at a time, Dad. Starting with getting sober. Mona's wedding is in 3 weeks. Do you think you can do that? For her? He nods, determination replacing the defeat in his eyes. I can. I will. I promise. As Ethan and I leave, I feel a mix of relief and trepidation. The immediate threat of Carmen is gone, but the real work of healing our family is just beginning. I can only hope that my father's resolve holds, that he'll be there for Mona on her big day. I look at Ethan, gratitude washing over me. Thank you, I whisper, for being here, for everything. He pulls me close, kissing my forehead. Always, he promises. As we drive away, I allow myself a small glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we can put our family back together again. The morning of Mona's wedding dawns bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my chest. I stand in the bridal suite, helping my sister into her gown, praying that our father keeps his promise to stay sober. You look beautiful, I whisper, smoothing down Mona's veil. She meets my eyes in the mirror, anxiety clouding her features. Have you heard from Dad? I force a smile. He'll be here, Mona. I promise. The lie tastes bitter on my tongue, but I can't bear to shatter her hope. Not today. As if on cue, there's a commotion in the hallway. My heart sinks as I recognize my father's slurred voice. That's my little girl in there. I'm walking her down the aisle. I squeeze Mona's shoulders. Stay here. I'll handle this. Stepping into the hallway, I'm confronted by the sight of my father, disheveled and reeking of alcohol. Carmen hovers behind him, a predatory gleam in her eyes. Dad, I hiss, grabbing his arm. What are you doing? You promised. He blinks at me, confusion clouding his bloodshot eyes. Lydia? What's wrong? I'm here for the wedding. Carmen places a hand on his shoulder, her voice sickly sweet. See, Randall? I told you we'd make it on time.
Klar her.
You need to leave. Now. Now, she purrs. Is that any way to treat your father's guest? Before I can respond, Ethan appears at my side. Mr. Hargrove, why don't we get you some coffee? Clear your head a bit before the ceremony. My father nods, allowing Ethan to lead him away. I turn to Carmen, fury boiling in my veins. I thought I made myself clear. You're not welcome here. She laughs, the sound grating on my nerves. Oh, sweetie, your father invited me. And unlike you, I actually care about his happiness. You care about his money? I spit. But that's over now. He knows what you are. A flicker of uncertainty crosses her face, quickly replaced by a sneer. We'll see about that. She saunters off, leaving me trembling with rage and fear. I take a deep breath, trying to center myself. I can't let this derail Mona's day. Returning to the bridal suite, I find Mona pacing, her veil askew. Lydia, what's going on? Is Dad drunk? I hesitate, torn between honesty and protection. He's having a rough morning, but Ethan's with him. We'll sort it out. Mona's face crumples. He promised Lydia. He promised he'd be here for me. I pull her into a hug, careful not to wrinkle her dress. I know, sweetie. I know. But hey, look at me. I cup her face in my hands. This is your day. You and Ben. Don't let anything take that away from you, okay? She nods, wiping away a stray tear. Okay. The next hour passes in a blur of last-minute preparations. I'm just helping Mona with her final touches when Nina bursts in. We have a problem, she pants. Your dad. He's insisting on giving a toast.
Right now.
In the lobby. My blood runs cold.
What?
No, the ceremony hasn't even started. I rush out, leaving Nina to comfort Mona. In the lobby, I find a small crowd gathered around my father, who's swaying slightly, champagne flute in hand. And now, he slurs, a toast to my beautiful daughter and her. What's his name again? Dad. I hiss, trying to take the glass from him. This isn't the time. He jerks away, sloshing champagne on his suit. Don't tell me what to do, Lydia. I'm still your father. From the corner of my eye, I see Carmen smirking, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Please, I beg, aware of the horrified onlookers. Let's just get you cleaned up before the ceremony. No, he shouts, his face flushing. I'm giving this toast now. To Mona and... Suddenly, he stumbles, the glass slipping from his hand. It shatters on the marble floor, the sound echoing through the stunned silence. As I rush to steady him, I catch sight of Mona standing in the doorway, her face a mask of heartbreak and disappointment. In that moment, I realize that no matter how hard I've tried to hold everything together, some things are beyond repair. The perfect wedding day I'd envisioned for Mona is crumbling before my eyes, and I'm powerless to stop it. The day after Mona's wedding, I sit in my apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of what should have been a joyous occasion. Discarded flower arrangements and half-empty champagne bottles mock me from every surface. My phone buzzes incessantly, but I can't bring myself to answer. I know it's Mona, probably calling to tell me she's leaving for her honeymoon. How can I face her after what happened? The memory of Dad stumbling down the aisle, reeking of alcohol, plays on repeat in my mind. Mona's face, a mixture of heartbreak and resignation, as Ben's family whispered and pointed. And through it all, Carmen's smug smile, as if she'd orchestrated the whole disaster. A knock at the door startles me from my reverie. It's Ethan, concern etched on his face. Lydia, he says softly, pulling me into an embrace. You can't keep hiding in here. I bury my face in his chest, finally letting the tears flow. I failed them, Ethan. I promised Mona everything would be perfect, and instead... Hey, he pulls back, cupping my face. You did everything you could. This isn't your fault. But his words do little to ease the guilt gnawing at my insides. I move to the window, staring out at the city below. Have you talked to your dad? Ethan asks, joining me. I shake my head. I can't. Not yet. I'm afraid of what I might say. As if on cue, my phone rings again. This time, it's Dad's number flashing on the screen. I hesitate, then answer. Lydia? His voice is rough, heavy with remorse. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I thought I could handle it. But Dash. Stop. I cut him off, anger suddenly flaring. You promised, Dad. You looked me in the eye and swore you'd stay sober for Mona's wedding. Do you have any idea what you've done? There's a long pause. When he speaks again, his voice is small. I know I messed up, but Carmen, she dash. Don't you dare blame this on her. I snap, even though I know she played a part. This was your choice. Your weakness. Please, Lydia, he begs. I need help. I can't do this alone. For a moment, I'm tempted. The little girl in me wants to rush to his side, to fix everything. But then I remember Mona's tears, the ruined ceremony, the years of broken promises. I can't, Dad, I say, my voice breaking. I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. You need professional help. And until you get it, I need some space. I hang up before he can respond, my hands shaking. Ethan wraps an arm around me, steadying me. That was brave, he murmurs. A knock at the door interrupts us. I open it to find Mona standing there, still in her traveling clothes. Mona? I gasp. Aren't you supposed to be on your honeymoon? She steps inside, her face a mask of determination. We postponed it. I couldn't leave things like this. I brace myself for her anger, her disappointment, but instead, she pulls me into a fierce hug. I'm so sorry, I whisper into her hair. She pulls back, shaking her head.
No, Lydia. I'm sorry.
I've been relying on you to fix everything for so long. It wasn't fair. We move to the couch, Ethan quietly excusing himself to give us privacy. What are we going to do about Dad? Mona asks, her voice small. I take a deep breath, steeling myself. I think we need to step back. Let him hit rock bottom if that's what it takes. We can't keep enabling him. Mona nods slowly. And Carmen, I'm not done with her yet, I say, a newfound resolve settling over me. She knew exactly what she was doing, bringing alcohol to the wedding. I'm going to find out everything I can about her past, her schemes. And then I'm going to make sure she never hurts anyone again. Mona takes my hand, squeezing it tightly. We'll do it together. No more shouldering everything alone, okay? For the first time in days, I feel a glimmer of hope. The road ahead won't be easy, but with Mona by my side, I know we can face whatever comes our way. As we sit there, planning our next moves, I realize that sometimes family isn't about blind loyalty. Sometimes it's about tough love, setting boundaries, and fighting for a better future, even if it means letting go of the past. The dim light of my laptop screen illuminates the scattered papers and empty coffee cups littering my dining room table. Nina sits across from me, her brow furrowed in concentration as she scrolls through another set of documents. Lydia, look at this, she says, turning the screen towards me. Carmen Santiago, arrested in 2015 for fraud and identity theft. Charges mysteriously dropped. I lean in, scanning the police report. How did she get away with it? Nina shrugs. Money talks. But look at the victim statement. It's eerily similar to what's happening with your dad. As I read, a chill runs down my spine. The parallels are undeniable. The charm, the manipulation, the gradual isolation from family and friends. We need to show this to Dad, I say, my voice tight with urgency. Nina places a hand on my arm. Are you sure that's wise? He's still not returning your calls, and Carmen's got her claws in deep. I stand, pacing the room. I have to try. I can't just sit back and watch her destroy him like she did to these other men. Just then, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Mona. 911. Dad's in the hospital. Alcohol poisoning. My heart plummets. I have to go, I tell Nina, already grabbing my keys. At the hospital, I find Mona in the waiting room, her face pale and drawn. What happened? I ask, pulling her into a hug.
I don't know, she sobs.
The neighbor found him unconscious on the front lawn. Carmen was nowhere to be seen. Anger flares in my chest. Of course she wasn't. She got what she wanted and left him to die. A doctor approaches, clipboard in hand. Are you Randall Hargrove's daughters? We nod, bracing ourselves for the worst. Your father is stable, but he's not out of the woods yet. His blood alcohol level was dangerously high. Has he been under any unusual stress lately? Mona and I exchange a look. You could say that, I mutter. As we wait to see Dad, I fill Mona in on what Nina and I discovered. Her eyes widen with each revelation. We have to stop her, Mona says, her voice steely with determination. We will, I promise. But first, we need to focus on Dad. When we're finally allowed into his room, the sight of him, pale, tubes snaking from his arms, nearly breaks me. His eyes flutter open as we approach. My girls, he croaks, reaching for our hands. I'm so sorry. For everything. Sho, Dad, Mona soothes. Just rest. But he shakes his head weakly. No, I need to say this. You were right about Carmen. She took everything. The house, the savings, even your mother's jewelry. Rage boils in my veins.
We'll get it back, Dad.
I promise.
He squeezes my hand. No, Lydia.
Let it go. I don't want you girls mixed up in this. I've caused enough pain. Dad, I start, but he cuts me off.
Please.
Can you forgive me? The vulnerability in his eyes, so unlike the proud man I grew up with, breaks something loose inside me. Of course we forgive you, Mona says, her voice choked with emotion. As we sit with Dad, a plan begins to form in my mind. Carmen may think she's won, but she has no idea who she's dealing with. Outside the hospital room, I pull Mona aside. I need you to stay with Dad. There's something I have to do. She searches my face, understanding dawning in her eyes. Be careful, Lydia. Carmen's dangerous. I nod, a grim smile playing at my lips. So am I. As I drive to Dad's house, Carmen's house now, I steel myself for the confrontation ahead. This ends today one way or another. I park across the street, watching as Carmen loads suitcases into her car. She's running, just as I suspected. Taking a deep breath, I step out of my car. Going somewhere, Carmen? I call out. She freezes, then slowly turns to face me. Her usual mask of charm slips, revealing the cold, calculating woman beneath. Lydia, she purrs, but I can hear the tension in her voice. How's your father? Such a tragedy. I take a step closer, my voice low and dangerous. Cut the act. I know everything, and you're going to give it all back, or I swear to God, I'll make you regret the day you ever heard the name Hargrove. Carmen's eyes narrow, assessing me. For a moment, I see a flicker of fear. Then, she smiles, all teeth and no warmth. Oh, sweetheart, she says. You have no idea what you're up against. And just like that, I know, this is war. The morning sun filters through the blinds of Dad's hospital room, casting a warm glow on his pale face. I sit by his bedside, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, a stark contrast to the chaos of the past few weeks. Lydia? His voice is weak, but his eyes are clearer than I've seen in months. What happened with Carmen? I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead.
She's gone, Dad.
For good this time. His brow furrows. What do you mean? I hesitate, unsure how much to reveal. But as I look at him, vulnerable, yet finally free from Carmen's influence, I decide he deserves the whole truth. After you were admitted, I confronted her. I begin, watching his reaction carefully. She was trying to leave town with everything she'd taken from you. But I wasn't about to let that happen. Dad's eyes widen. Lydia, you didn't. I didn't do anything illegal, I assure him quickly. But I did call in every favor I had. Remember my college roommate who became a detective? She was very interested in Carmen's history. I explain how we uncovered Carmen's long list of victims, how we tracked down her former aliases and connected the dots. Dad listens in stunned silence as I recount the final confrontation, Carmen's desperate attempts to flee, the arrival of the police, the look of defeat in her eyes as she was led away in handcuffs. "Your mother's jewelry?" he asks softly. I reach into my bag, pulling out a familiar velvet box.
"Right here, Dad."
Along with the deed to the house and most of the money she took. It might take some time, but we'll get it all back. Tears well in his eyes as he takes the box with trembling hands. "I don't deserve this. Any of it. After what I put you and Mona through." "Dad," I interrupt gently. "We've all made mistakes. What matters now is where we go from here." A knock at the door interrupts us. Mona enters, followed by Ethan and Nina. The room feels suddenly crowded, filled with a nervous energy. "How are you feeling, Dad?" Mona asks, taking his other hand. He looks between us, his gaze lingering on each face. "Better than I have in a long time," he admits. "And worse, knowing what I've done to this family." Mona and I exchange a glance. This is the moment we've been waiting for, a chance to start healing. "We want to help you, Dad," Mona says softly. "But we need to know you're serious about getting better." Dad nods, a determined set to his jaw. "I am. I've already spoken to the doctor about rehab options. I know it won't be easy, but I'm ready to do the work." I feel a weight lift from my shoulders. It's not a guarantee, but it's a start. "We're here for you," I tell him. "But we need to set some boundaries. No more secrets, no more enabling. We face this together as a family." Dad squeezes our hands. "I promise. No more running from my problems. No more letting you girls carry the burden." As we talk, outlining plans for Dad's recovery and the steps we'll take to rebuild our relationships, I feel a sense of cautious hope blooming in my chest. It won't be easy. There are still wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But for the first time in years, it feels like we're all on the same page. Later, as Ethan and I walk through the hospital parking lot, he pulls me close. "I'm proud of you," he murmurs. "The way you handled everything with Carmen, how you're supporting your dad. You're incredible, Lydia." I lean into him, suddenly exhausted. "I couldn't have done it without you. Any of you."
He kisses the top of my head.
"That's what family is for, the one you're born with and the one you choose." As we drive home, I reflect on the whirlwind of the past few weeks. The pain, the anger, the fear, it's all still there, simmering beneath the surface. But there's something else too, something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Tomorrow, we'll face new challenges. Dad's road to recovery, rebuilding our family's trust, dealing with the legal aftermath of Carmen's schemes. But for now, I allow myself to bask in this moment of peace. We've weathered the storm, and though the damage is extensive, I can see the first rays of sunlight breaking through the clouds. It's a new dawn for the Hargrove family, and I'm ready to face it head-on. The late afternoon sun bathes Mona's backyard in a warm, golden light as I adjust the fairy lights strung between the trees. It's been 6 months since the wedding disaster, and we're finally celebrating Mona and Ben's marriage properly on our own terms, surrounded by those who truly matter. I step back, surveying the scene. Ethan and Ben are at the grill, laughing over some shared joke. Nina arranges flowers on the tables, her artistic touch evident in every detail. And there, sitting in a chair near the rose bushes, is Dad. He looks different now, thinner, but with a clarity in his eyes I haven't seen in years. 90 days sober and counting. It hasn't been easy, but he's fighting every day to be the father we always needed. "Penny for your thoughts?" Mona appears at my side, handing me a glass of sparkling cider. I smile, clinking my glass against hers, just thinking about how far we've come. She nods, her gaze drifting to Dad. "Did you ever think we'd be here? After everything?" "Honestly, no, I admit. But I'm glad I was wrong." As if sensing our attention, Dad looks up and waves us over. We join him, settling into nearby chairs. "My girls," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully express how sorry I am for everything I put you through. or how grateful I am that you've given me another chance. Mona reaches out, squeezing his hand.
We're proud of you, Dad.
We know it hasn't been easy. One day at a time, he says, the familiar mantra of his recovery. But having you both by my side makes all the difference. I feel a lump forming in my throat.
We're here, Dad.
Always. We sit in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as our loved ones mingle and laugh. It's not perfect. There's still wounds healing, trust being rebuilt. But it's real, and it's ours. As the evening progresses, we gather around the tables for dinner. Glasses are raised, toasts are made. To Mona and Ben, to new beginnings, to family, both blood and chosen. When it's my turn to speak, I stand, looking around at the faces of those I hold dear. A wise person once told me that family isn't just about blind loyalty. I begin. It's about tough love, setting boundaries, and fighting for a better future, even if it means letting go of the past. I meet Dad's gaze, seeing the mixture of pride and remorse in his eyes. These past months have taught me more about love, forgiveness, and resilience than I ever thought possible. We've been through hell and back, but we've emerged stronger. Not because we're perfect, but because we're committed to growing, to healing, to choosing each other every single day. I raise my glass. To the Hargroves, past, present, and future. May we always remember that it's never too late for a new beginning. As cheers erupt around the table, I feel Ethan's arm slip around my waist. He presses a kiss to my temple. That was beautiful, he murmurs. Later, as the party winds down and guests begin to leave, I find myself alone on the porch swing. The night air is cool, filled with the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of crickets. Mona joins me, resting her head on my shoulder.
Thank you, she says softly.
For everything. I don't know how I would have gotten through all this without you. I wrap an arm around her. That's what big sisters are for. We sit in companionable silence, watching as Dad helps Ben and Ethan clean up. There's an ease to their interactions now, a sense of genuine connection that warms my heart. Do you think we'll be okay? Mona asks, her voice barely above a whisper. I consider her question, thinking of all we've endured and overcome. The pain, the betrayals, the long road to healing. But also the laughter, the support, the unwavering love that's seen us through. Yeah, I say, squeezing her shoulder. I think we will be. It won't always be easy, but we've got each other. And that's what matters most. As the last of the fairy lights twinkle out, I feel a sense of peace settle over me. Our family isn't perfect. It's messy, complicated, and still healing. But it's ours. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to see what the future holds. Because no matter what comes our way, I know we'll face it together, stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. The first time I realized my father hated me, I was 7 years old. My name is Rachel Merrick, and I've spent most of my life trying to earn the love of a man who sees me as nothing but a burden. Rachel, get down here and set the table. Dad's voice boomed from the kitchen, making me flinch. I scrambled down the stairs, nearly tripping over my own feet in my haste to obey. As I entered the kitchen, the aroma of Mom's pot roast filled the air. Dad stood by the counter, his face twisted in a scowl. Can't you move any faster? Your mother's been slaving away all day, and you can't even be bothered to help. I grabbed the plates from the cabinet, my small hands trembling.
I'm sorry, Dad.
I was just Dash. I don't want to hear your excuses, he snapped, cutting me off. Just do as you're told. Mom glanced over her shoulder, her eyes distant. Jasper, please. She's trying her best. Dad's jaw clenched. Her best isn't good enough. It never has been. I felt my chest tighten as I carefully laid out the plates, desperate to avoid making any noise that might set him off again. As I reached for the silverware drawer, I heard the front door open. We're home. Aunt Margot's cheerful voice rang out, followed by the pitter-patter of little feet. My 3-year-old sister, Isla, burst into the kitchen, her curls bouncing. Daddy, she squealed, running straight into his arms. Dad's entire demeanor changed in an instant. His scowl melted into a warm smile as he scooped Isla up. "There's my little princess. Did you have fun with Aunt Margot?" I watched, a familiar ache settling in my chest as Dad showered Isla with affection. It was always like this. Isla was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. And I was the mistake. Aunt Margot entered the kitchen, her kind eyes finding mine. "Hello, Rachel. How are you, sweetheart?" Before I could answer, Dad cut in. "She's fine." Rachel finished setting the table. Aunt Margot frowned, but said nothing. She knew better than to challenge Dad when he was in one of his moods. As we sat down to eat, the conversation revolved entirely around Isla, her day at the park, her new words, her latest accomplishments. I pushed my food around my plate, feeling invisible. "Rachel," Mom's voice startled me. "Why aren't you eating? I made this especially for your father." I forced a smile. "It's delicious, Mom. I'm just not very hungry." Dad's eyes narrowed. "You're ungrateful. That's what you are. Do you know how many kids would kill for a meal like this?" "I'm sorry," I whispered, fighting back tears. "May I be excused?" "No," Dad said firmly. "You'll sit here and finish your dinner like a good girl, and then you'll do the dishes." Aunt Margot cleared her throat. "Jasper, don't you think Dash?" "This doesn't concern you, Margot," Dad snapped. "She's my daughter, and I'll raise her as I see fit." The rest of the meal passed in tense silence. As soon as it was over, I hurried to clear the table, desperate to escape to my room. As I stood at the sink, up to my elbows in soapy water, I heard Dad's voice from the living room. "I swear, that girl is the bane of my existence. If it wasn't for her, we could have had the life we always dreamed of." "Jasper, please." Mom's voice was barely audible. "She might hear you. Let her hear," Dad replied bitterly. "Maybe then she'll understand what a disappointment she is." I bit my lip hard, trying to hold back the sobs that threatened to escape. This was my life, always trying, always failing, never good enough. As I finished the dishes, I made a silent vow to myself. One day, I would prove them all wrong. One day, I would make something of myself, with or without their approval. Little did I know, that day would come sooner than I ever imagined, and it would change everything. The sizzle of garlic hitting hot oil filled the air as I expertly flipped the pan, tossing the ingredients with a practiced flick of my wrist. The bustling kitchen of Chicago's premier culinary institute hummed with energy, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere of my childhood home. "Rachel, your technique is impeccable," Chef Marceau praised, peering over my shoulder. "That reduction is coming along beautifully." I beamed, savoring the warmth of his approval. "Thank you, Chef." As I plated my dish, my best friend Eli sidled up next to me. "Killing it as usual, Ratch. You're gonna blow everyone away at the showcase next week." I grinned, feeling a surge of confidence. "Thanks, Eli. I just hope Dash." My phone buzzed, interrupting my thought. I glanced at the screen, and my smile faltered. It was a text from Mom. "Your father wants to know when you're coming home. Isla misses you." I sighed, tucking the phone away. Eli raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just family stuff," I muttered, focusing on garnishing my plate. After class, Eli and I grabbed coffee at our favorite campus spot. As we settled into a cozy corner booth, he fixed me with a concerned look.
Spill litt, rock.
"What's going on with your folks?" I took a deep breath, tracing the rim of my mug. "They want me to come home. Dad's probably hoping I'll give up on this chef nonsense and get a real job like he's always wanted." Eli's eyes narrowed. "Don't tell me you're considering it." "No way," I said firmly. "This is my dream, Eli. I'm not giving it up for anyone." He nodded approvingly. "Good. Because you're too damn talented to waste it on their small-minded expectations." Just then, my phone rang. It was Aunt Margot. I answered, grateful for the distraction. "Hey, Aunt Margot." "Rachel, darling. How's my favorite culinary prodigy?" I couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. "I'm good, Aunt Margot. Just finished another day of classes." "Wonderful. Listen, I've got some exciting news. I've been talking to an old friend, who owns a restaurant in the city. He's looking for some fresh talent for a summer internship. I may have mentioned your name. My heart raced. Are you serious? Aunt Margot, that's incredible. You deserve it, sweetheart. You've worked so hard. I'm sending you the details now. Oh, and one more thing. I heard the rustle of paper, then Aunt Margot's voice softened. I know things haven't been easy with your parents. I want you to have this. Consider it a little boost to help you chase your dreams. My phone pinged with a notification. I checked it and gasped. Aunt Margot had sent me a generous financial gift. Aunt Margot, I don't know what to say. I stammered, tears pricking my eyes. You don't have to say anything, dear. Just promise me you'll keep following your passion. You have a gift, Rachel. Don't let anyone dim your light. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Eli leaned forward, concern etched on his face. Rach, what is it? I showed him the notification, still in disbelief. Aunt Margot.
She believes in me, Eli.
She really believes in me. Eli grinned, squeezing my hand. Of course she does. We all do. It's about time you started believing in yourself, too. As we left the coffee shop, a new sense of determination filled me. I had support, I had talent, and now I had the means to take the next step towards my dreams. That night, as I pored over the internship details, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. Your father's asking about your plans after graduation. He says it's time to be practical. I stared at the message, a familiar mix of frustration and defiance rising within me. Then, with a deep breath, I typed out a reply. Tell Dad I am being practical. I'm pursuing a career I'm passionate about and skilled in. I'm staying in Chicago this summer for an internship. This is my path, and I'm following it. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then, turning back to my culinary textbooks, I threw myself into planning for the showcase. I had a point to prove, not just to my family, but to myself. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. And I was hungry for more. The familiar scent of home hit me as I stepped through the front door, a bittersweet mixture of nostalgia and dread. I'd barely set my bags down when Mom's voice called out from the kitchen. Rachel, is that you? Come help me with dinner. I sighed, steeling myself. Coming, Mom. The kitchen was a flurry of activity. Mom stood at the stove, stirring a pot of what looked like her infamous bland stew. Dad sat at the table, newspaper in hand, not bothering to look up as I entered. About time you got here, he grumbled. Your mother's been slaving away all day. I bit back a retort, instead moving to the counter to start chopping vegetables. How can I help, Mom? She glanced at me, her eyes distant. Just do what you can. You know how to cook now, don't you? I nodded, trying not to let the hurt show on my face. 4 years of culinary school, and this was all the acknowledgement I got. As I worked, I couldn't help but notice how outdated the kitchen equipment was. The knives were dull, the pots and pans worn. I thought of the state-of-the-art kitchens I'd trained in and felt a pang of longing. So, Dad's voice cut through my thoughts. What are your plans now that you've finished with that cooking hobby of yours? I tensed, focusing on the carrots I was dicing. It's not a hobby, Dad. I'm a trained chef. I'm planning to work in restaurants. Maybe open my own someday.
He scoffed.
A restaurant? That's no way to make a living. You need a real job, something stable. Before I could respond, the front door burst open. I'm home. Isla's voice rang out, followed by the sound of her bounding up the stairs. Dad's face lit up. There's my girl. How was your day, princess? I watched as he showered Isla with attention, asking about her day, her friends, her plans. The contrast to his interaction with me was stark and painful. As we sat down to eat, the conversation revolved entirely around Isla's achievements and aspirations. I pushed the bland stew around my plate, my culinary instincts screaming at the lack of seasoning and depth. Rachel, Mom's voice startled me. Why aren't you eating? Don't you like it? I forced a smile. It's fine, Mom. I'm just not very hungry. Dad's eyes narrowed. After all the effort your mother put in, you're still as ungrateful as ever, I see. I felt my temper flare. I didn't say that. I just dash. That's enough, he cut me off. If you're so good at cooking now, why don't you make dinner tomorrow? Show us what you've learned with all that money we wasted on your education. I nodded stiffly, already planning the menu in my head. I'd show them exactly what I could do. The next evening, I threw myself into preparing a gourmet meal. I used every technique I'd learned, every trick to elevate flavors and presentation. The kitchen came alive with aromas that had never graced this house before. As I set the table, arranging each plate with care, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this would be the moment they finally saw my worth. But as we sat down to eat, the reactions were underwhelming. Mom picked at her food, muttering about fancy restaurant nonsense. Dad took a few bites, then pushed his plate away. "It's interesting," he said, his tone dismissive. "But give me a good home-cooked meal any day. This just isn't practical, Rachel." I felt my heart sink. No matter what I did, it would never be enough. Later that night, as I was cleaning up, I heard a soft knock. My grandfather, Gideon, stepped into the kitchen, his eyes twinkling. "That was quite a meal, Rachel," he said warmly. "You've got a real talent." I felt tears prick my eyes at his kindness.
Thanks, Grandpa.
At least someone appreciates it. He nodded, understanding in his gaze. Then, reaching into his pocket, he pulled out an old, leather-bound book. "I want you to have this. It's been in our family for generations." As I took the book, its pages yellowed with age, I realized it was filled with handwritten recipes. Gideon squeezed my shoulder. "Don't let them dim your light, Rachel. You've got a gift. Use it." In that moment, holding my family's culinary legacy in my hands, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I might not have my parents' approval, but I had something far more valuable: a passion, a talent, and now, a connection to my roots. I was more determined than ever to forge my own path, no matter the obstacles. The Merrick family gathering was in full swing, the living room buzzing with conversation and laughter. I stood in the corner, nursing a glass of wine, feeling like an outsider in my own family. Aunt Margot caught my eye from across the room and offered a sympathetic smile. "Rachel, dear." Grandpa Gideon's voice cut through the noise. "Come here a moment, would you?" I made my way through the crowd, grateful for the excuse to escape another of Dad's pointed comments about real jobs. Grandpa Gideon sat in his favorite armchair, eyes twinkling with mischief. "I've got something for you," he said, pulling out a small envelope. "Just a bit of fun." Inside was a scratch-off lottery ticket. I laughed, touched by the simple gesture. "Thanks, Grandpa." "Well, go on then," he urged. "Let's see if Lady Luck is on your side today." With a playful roll of my eyes, I began scratching. As the numbers were revealed, my heart started racing. I double-checked, then triple-checked, hardly daring to believe it. "Grandpa," I whispered, my voice shaking. I think I won." His eyes widened. "Won what, dear?"
The jackpot.
$500,000. The room fell silent as the news spread. Then, chaos erupted. 500,000?
Dad's voice boomed.
"Well, isn't that something? That'll set us all up nicely." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean, us all?" Mom chimed in, her tone sickly sweet. "Well, surely you'll share with your family, Rachel. After all we've done for you." I clutched the ticket tighter, anger and disbelief warring inside me. "After all you've done for me? You mean like constantly belittling my dreams? Making me feel worthless?" Dad's face darkened. "Now listen here, young lady. We put a roof over your head, food on your plate. The least you can do is show some gratitude." "Gratitude?" I laughed bitterly.
For what?
"For making me feel like a burden my entire life." Isla piped up, her voice small. "Dad, maybe Rachel should dash." "Stay out of this, Isla," Dad snapped. "This is between us and your sister." I looked around the room, at the faces of my family. Some looked embarrassed, others expectant. Only Aunt Margot and Grandpa Gideon seemed to be on my side. "This is my ticket," I said, my voice growing stronger. "My win. And I'm not sharing it." The room erupted again, voices overlapping in a cacophony of outrage and entitlement. "You selfish little Dash. After all we've sacrificed, Dash. I can't believe you'd do this to your own family, Dash." Aunt Margot stepped forward, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. "That's enough. This is Rachel's win, and it's her decision what to do with it." Dad turned on her, his face red with anger. "Stay out of this, Margot. You've always coddled her, filled her head with ridiculous notions." "The only ridiculous notion here," Grandpa Gideon's calm voice cut through the chaos, "is the idea that Rachel owes you anything." The room fell silent once more. Grandpa rarely raised his voice, and when he did, everyone listened. "This is Rachel's chance," he continued. "Her opportunity to pursue her dreams. And if you can't support that, then maybe you need to take a long, hard look at yourselves." I felt tears prick my eyes, overwhelmed by his support. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. "I'm leaving," I announced. "I'm going to use this money to start my own restaurant, to build the life I've always dreamed of." Mom gasped. "Rachel, you can't be serious." I've never been more serious about anything in my life. As I turned to leave, Isla caught my arm. "Rachel, wait. I'm proud of you." I smiled at her, seeing a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. "Thanks, Isla. That means a lot." With one last look at my stunned family, I walked out the door, the lottery ticket clutched tightly in my hand. It wasn't just money I was holding, it was freedom, opportunity, and the chance to finally prove myself. As I stepped into the cool night air, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was truly in control of my destiny, and I was ready to savor every moment of it. The key clicked in the lock of my new apartment, and I stepped inside, breathing in the scent of possibility. Boxes lined the walls, each one filled with dreams I'd been too afraid to unpack until now. I set down the last of my belongings and surveyed my new kingdom, small, but mine. My phone buzzed. Another message from Dad. "You're making a mistake. Come home before it's too late." I deleted it without responding. There was no going back now. A knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find Eli grinning, a bottle of champagne in hand. Housewarming gift for the future restaurateur. I laughed, ushering him in. "You're ridiculous. I haven't even started looking for locations yet." Details, he waved dismissively. "We're celebrating your freedom tonight." As we sipped champagne from mismatched mugs, I shared my plans. "I'm thinking of a fusion concept. Something that blends traditional recipes with modern techniques." Eli nodded enthusiastically. "That's perfect. It's you on a plate, honoring your roots while forging your own path." A warmth spread through me, and not just from the champagne.
This was what support felt like.
The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I scoured the city for the perfect location, met with real estate agents, and drafted business plans. Each step forward was exhilarating, but the constant barrage of doubt-filled messages from my parents cast a shadow over my excitement. One afternoon, as I was poring over potential menu items, my phone rang. It was Aunt Margot. "Rachel, darling, how's the restaurant planning coming along?" I sighed, grateful for her unwavering support. "It's challenging, but exciting. I think I've found the perfect location." "That's wonderful. Listen, I've been thinking. I have some connections in the restaurant industry. How about I set up a meeting with a few potential investors?" My heart raced. "Aunt Margot, that would be incredible."
"Thank you."
"Don't thank me yet," she chuckled. "These investors can be sharks. But I believe in you, Rachel. You've got what it takes to impress them." After we hung up, I turned back to Grandpa Gideon's recipe book, seeking comfort in its worn pages. As I flipped through, a folded piece of paper fluttered to the floor. Curious, I opened it. "My dearest Rachel, if you're reading this, it means you've finally taken the leap to follow your dreams. I always knew you had it in you. There's so much of your grandmother in you, her passion, her talent, her unwavering spirit. There's something you should know. Years ago, your grandmother and I owned a restaurant. It was our pride and joy, built from nothing but love and determination. We poured our hearts into every dish, every customer interaction. It was more than a business. It was our legacy. But we lost it. The details aren't important now, but know this. Dreams can be fragile things. Protect yours fiercely. Don't let anyone, not even family, steal your passion. You have a gift, Rachel. Use it. Create something beautiful. And remember, true family supports your dreams, not diminishes them. I'm so proud of you. Love, Grandpa Gideon. Tears blurred my vision as I read and reread the note. A family secret hidden all these years. Questions swirled in my mind. What happened to their restaurant? Why had no one ever mentioned it? With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and dialed Grandpa Gideon's number. It went to voicemail. Grandpa, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I found your note. I have so many questions. Please call me back when you can. As I hung up, a new determination filled me. I wasn't just building a restaurant anymore. I was reclaiming a legacy, honoring the dreams that had been lost. I turned back to my plans with renewed vigor. The menu began to take shape, a blend of Grandpa Gideon's traditional recipes and my own modern twists. Each dish would tell a story, our family story. As night fell, I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there was the perfect location for my restaurant. Somewhere out there were the answers to the questions burning in my mind. Tomorrow, I'd start searching for both. But tonight, I allowed myself to dream, fueled by the knowledge that I wasn't just following my own passion, I was carrying forward a family legacy. And nothing, not even my parents' disapproval, could stop me now. The rhythmic pounding of hammers and whir of power tools filled the air as I stood in the center of what would soon be my restaurant. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the newly installed windows, and for a moment, I allowed myself to bask in the progress. MS. Merrick? A voice pulled me from my reverie. We've uncovered something you might want to see. I followed the contractor to a back corner where they'd been removing old drywall. There, revealed like a time capsule, was a faded sign. Gideon's Place Zest. 1975. My breath caught in my throat. Grandpa Gideon's restaurant had been here, in this very spot. It couldn't be a coincidence. That night, I pored over his recipe book with new intensity, searching for clues. As I flipped through the well-worn pages, a yellowed newspaper clipping fell out. The headline made my blood run cold. Local restaurant closes amid family dispute. The article detailed how Gideon's Place, once a beloved neighborhood institution, had shuttered its doors after a bitter disagreement between the owner and his son-in-law. The son-in-law wasn't named, but I knew in my gut it was my father. With shaking hands, I dialed Grandpa Gideon's number. This time, he answered. Rachel, my dear. I've been expecting your call. Grandpa, I said, my voice thick with emotion. The restaurant. It was here, in the same building. Did you know? He sighed heavily. I had my suspicions when you told me the address. It seems fate has a sense of irony. What happened, Grandpa? The article mentioned a dispute with Dad, but dash. It's a long and painful story, Rachel. One I've tried to forget for many years. But perhaps it's time you knew the truth. Over the next hour, Grandpa Gideon unraveled a tale that shook me to my core. He spoke of the restaurant's early success, of the love and passion he and my grandmother had poured into every dish. And then he told me about my father's involvement. Jasper was ambitious, always looking for the next big thing. He convinced us to take out loans, to expand too quickly. When things went south, he made some questionable decisions. Cooked the books, so to speak. I felt sick. Dad embezzled money. He thought he could fix it before anyone noticed. But by the time it all came to light, the damage was done. We lost everything. The restaurant, our savings, nearly our home. Tears streamed down my face as the pieces fell into place. Dad's bitterness, his resentment towards me and my culinary dreams, it all stemmed from his own failures and guilt. Why didn't you ever tell me? I whispered. We wanted to protect you, Rachel. And Jasper, well, he made it clear he never wanted it mentioned again. I think the shame ate away at him over the years. As we said our goodbyes, a steely resolve settled over me. I wasn't just opening a restaurant anymore. I was reclaiming a legacy, righting a wrong that had festered for decades. The next morning, I arrived at the construction site with renewed purpose. I gathered my team, sharing my vision with a passion that surprised even me. "We're not just creating a restaurant," I told them. "We're resurrecting a piece of history. Every dish will tell a story, every recipe a tribute to those who came before us." As we worked, I incorporated elements of Gideon's place into the design, subtle nods to the past that most wouldn't notice, but that filled me with a sense of connection to my roots. The menu began to take shape, a perfect blend of Grandpa Gideon's classic recipes and my own modern twists. Each dish was a conversation between past and present, tradition and innovation. But as opening day approached, a nagging worry gnawed at me. How would my parents react when they realized what I'd done? Would they see it as an act of defiance, a public airing of family secrets? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the tasks at hand. There would be time for confrontations later. For now, I had a restaurant to open, a legacy to honor. As I stood in the nearly finished dining room, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the promise of the future, I made a silent vow. I would make this place a success, not just for myself, but for Grandpa Gideon, for the dreams that had been stolen from him. And if my parents couldn't accept that, well, they'd have to learn to live with disappointment for a change. The soft glow of candlelight danced across the polished surfaces of Legacy, my restaurant, on its opening night. The air hummed with excitement and the tantalizing aroma of Grandpa Gideon's recipes, reimagined with my own modern twists. I stood in the kitchen, heart racing, as I watched my dream unfold before my eyes. Eli appeared at my side, grinning. "Rachel, it's packed out there. You've done it." I allowed myself a moment of pride before refocusing on the task at hand. "Thanks, Eli. Let's make sure every dish is perfect." As I moved to check on a simmering sauce, Aunt Margot burst into the kitchen, her face pale. "Rachel, honey, you need to come out front. Your parents are here." My stomach dropped. I'd sent them an invitation out of obligation, never expecting them to actually show up. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself and headed for the dining room. There they stood, looking out of place amidst the celebratory atmosphere. Dad's face was set in its usual scowl, while Mom fidgeted nervously with her purse strap. "Rachel," Dad's voice was gruff. "We need to talk. In private." I led them to a small office off the main floor, my mind racing. As soon as the door closed behind us, Dad rounded on me. "What do you think you're playing at?" he hissed. "Using your grandfather's recipes? Naming dishes after him? You have no right." I felt a surge of anger. "No right? This is my heritage, Dad. My legacy." "Legacy," he scoffed. "You don't know the first thing about legacy. We sacrificed everything for you girls, and this is how you repay us." Mom chimed in, her voice sickly sweet. "Darling, we're just concerned. Running a restaurant is so risky. Wouldn't it be better to share some of your windfall with the family? We could all benefit." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Benefit? Like how you benefited from Grandpa Gideon's restaurant before you ran it into the ground. The color drained from Dad's face. "What are you talking about?" "I know everything, Dad. About Gideon's place, about the embezzlement, about how you destroyed Grandpa's dream." "You ungrateful little dash," Dad's hand raised, and for a moment, I thought he might strike me. But then a voice cut through the tension. "Don't you dare touch her." We all turned to see Isla standing in the doorway, her eyes blazing with a fire I'd never seen before. "Isla, honey," Mom started, but Isla cut her off. "No, Mom. I've listened to you two tear Rachel down for years. I've watched you favor me, push her aside, make her feel worthless. And for what? To cover up your own failures and guilt." Dad's face contorted with rage. "You have no idea what you're talking about, young lady." "Don't I?" Isla shot back. "I've always known something was off. The way you flinched whenever restaurants were mentioned, the bitter comments about failed dreams. It all makes sense now." I stared at my sister in awe, seeing her in a new light. All this time, I thought she was oblivious to our parents' manipulation, when in reality, she'd been suffering too. This ends now, I said, finding strength in Isla's support. You two have no claim on this restaurant or its profits. This is my dream, my hard work, and my redemption of our family's legacy. You can't do this, Dad sputtered. We're parents. We deserve dash. You deserve nothing, I interrupted, my voice steady. If you can't be happy for me, if you can't support my dreams, then you have no place here. Not in my restaurant, and not in my life. A heavy silence fell over the room. Mom's eyes darted between Dad and me, uncertain. Dad's face was a storm of emotions, anger, shame, and something that might have been regret. Finally, Isla spoke again. Rachel's right. It's time for us to go, Mom and Dad. This is her night, her triumph. We should never have come here to ruin it. As Isla ushered our shell-shocked parents out, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I'd confronted the ghosts of my past and come out stronger. Returning to the bustling dining room, I was greeted by the sight of happy customers, the sound of laughter, and the rich aromas of my culinary creations. This was my world now, my family. And as I dove back into the rhythm of the kitchen, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them. On my own terms, with my own strength, and with the true support of those who believed in me. The aroma of sizzling garlic and fresh herbs filled the air as I moved through the bustling kitchen of Legacy. 6 months had passed since our tumultuous opening night, and the restaurant had blossomed beyond my wildest dreams. Rachel. Isla's voice called out over the clatter of pots and pans. The food critic from the Tribune just arrived. I nodded, taking a deep breath to calm my nerves. This review could cement our reputation as one of Chicago's top dining destinations. As I put the finishing touches on the critic's first course, my eyes fell on the framed photo hanging in the corner of the kitchen. It was a picture of Grandpa Gideon in front of his original restaurant, his eyes twinkling with pride. Next to it hung the handwritten recipe book he'd given me, now a cherished relic of our family's culinary legacy. You've got this, Ratch, Eli said, squeezing my shoulder as he passed. Your food speaks for itself. I smiled gratefully at my friend, now my sous chef. Thanks, Eli. Let's show them what legacy is all about. As the evening progressed, I lost myself in the rhythm of the kitchen, the dance of flavors and textures that had become my life's passion. Each dish that left the past was a piece of my heart, a fragment of my family's story reimagined. Hours later, as the last customers trickled out, Isla burst into the kitchen, her face flushed with excitement. Rachel, you're not going to believe this. The critic, he loved it. He's calling Legacy a triumphant blend of nostalgia and innovation. We did it. The kitchen erupted in cheers. As I hugged my sister, tears of joy streaming down my face, I caught sight of a familiar figure standing in the doorway. Grandpa, I gasped. Grandpa Gideon stepped forward, his eyes misty. I couldn't stay away any longer. I had to see for myself what you've accomplished. As he looked around the kitchen, taking in the modern equipment alongside the old family photos and recipes, his face broke into a wide smile. You've done it, Rachel. You've reclaimed our legacy and made it your own. We spent the next hour showing Grandpa around, introducing him to the staff, and sharing stories of the past few months. As we sat in a quiet corner of the empty dining room, Grandpa reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. I have something for you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It's a letter from your father. My heart clenched. I hadn't spoken to my parents since opening night. With trembling hands, I opened the letter and began to read. Rachel, I've spent months trying to find the words to express how deeply I regret my actions, both recent and long past. The truth is, I've been a coward. I allowed my own failures and guilt to poison our relationship, to blind me to the incredible person you've become. Seeing the success you've made of Legacy, hearing about how you've honored your grandfather's memory while forging your own path, it's made me realize how wrong I've been. You are everything I wish I had been brave enough to be. I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I hope that someday you might allow me the chance to try to make amends. To be the father you always deserved. With love and deepest regret.
Dad.
As I finished reading, I looked up to see Isla and Grandpa watching me with concern. Are you okay? Isla asked softly. I took a deep breath, surprised by the sense of peace that washed over me. I am. For the first time in a long time, I really am. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of my restaurant and the love of my true family, not just those related by blood, but the family I'd chosen and built, I realized that I had finally found my place in the world. Legacy wasn't just a restaurant. It was a testament to the power of perseverance, of honoring the past while embracing the future. It was the culmination of a journey that had taught me the true meaning of family, of self-worth, and of following one's dreams against all odds. As we raised our glasses in a quiet toast, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them. I had reclaimed my family's legacy, forged my own path, and in doing so, had finally found the acceptance and love I'd always craved, not from others, but from within myself. The future stretched out before me, as rich and full of possibility as the dishes we created each night. And I couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. I never thought a chance encounter at my bookstore would lead to the unraveling of my entire life. But that's exactly what happened when Evan Mitchell walked in on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, looking for a children's book. My name is Marlo, though most people call me Marley, and I've spent the last 5 years managing the Corner Bookmark, a cozy independent bookstore in downtown Portland. It's the kind of place where regulars come in just to chat, and the smell of coffee from our tiny cafe mingles with the scent of old books. Excuse me, a voice called out while I was arranging a new display of mystery novels. I'm looking for something special for my niece's birthday. I turned around and found myself face to face with probably the most genuine smile I'd seen in years. The man was tall, well-dressed, but not flashy, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he grinned. Of course, I said, straightening my glasses. How old is she? 7, going on 30, he laughed. She's already reading chapter books and tells everyone she's going to be a marine biologist. Sounds like someone who'd love the Ocean Scientist series, I suggested, leading him toward the children's section. They're perfect for advanced young readers who... Actually, he interrupted, I think I'd rather hear about what you're reading. That's how it started. One conversation turned into coffee at our cafe, which turned into dinner the following weekend. Evan was charming, successful, but humble, and came from what he called a wonderfully chaotic family, the complete opposite of my quiet upbringing with my grandmother. 3 months into dating, everything seemed perfect. Until the text that changed everything. Can't wait for you to meet everyone tonight. Mom's making her famous lasagna. Emily's bringing wine. Lucas might even show up if he can escape work. No pressure, but this is kind of a big deal. Heart suit. I stared at my phone, my stomach dropping. We hadn't discussed meeting his family yet. In fact, I'd been deliberately avoiding the topic. My peaceful apartment, filled with books and the quiet solitude I cherished, suddenly felt like it was shrinking around me. Tonight? I typed back, trying to keep my rising panic in check. I thought we were having a quiet dinner, just us? The 3 dots appeared immediately. Change of plans. Mom insisted once she heard about you. You'll love them, I promise. Pick you up at 6? Before I could respond, another message popped up. Emily's so excited. She might stop by your place before dinner to help you get ready. I gave her your spare key, hope that's okay. I nearly dropped my phone. Spare key? The one I'd given him for emergencies 2 weeks ago? You gave your sister my key? My fingers trembled as I typed. She's basically your sister now too. Smiling face with smiling eyes, that's how we do things in our family. No boundaries, all love. No boundaries. The words echoed in my head like a warning bell. I thought about my grandmother, who'd taught me the value of personal space and independence. Your home is your sanctuary, Marley, she used to say. Guard it well. Now here I was, standing in my sanctuary, knowing a stranger had a key to it. And apparently, I was expected to smile and accept it because that's what family does. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Hey future sis. It's Emily. Can't wait to raid your closet and help you pick the perfect outfit for tonight. See you in an hour. Party popper. I sank onto my couch, clutching my phone, as the reality of what I'd gotten myself into began to sink in. This wasn't just about meeting the family anymore. This was about being absorbed by them, whether I was ready or not. And something told me this was only the beginning. Emily burst into my apartment like a tornado in designer jeans, armed with what looked like an entire Sephora store in her oversized purse. I barely had time to process her presence before she was rifling through my closet, tossing clothes onto my carefully made bed. "Oh, honey, we need to work on this," she said, holding up my favorite sweater like it was evidence in a crime scene. "Mom's going to have opinions if you show up in something this practical." I stood in my doorway, still processing how quickly my personal space had been invaded. I like practical. Trust me, first impressions matter with Patricia Mitchell. Emily paused her ransacking to apply another layer of lip gloss. She's already wondering why Evan's dating a bookstore manager instead of, someone more successful. I finished for her, my grandmother's voice echoing in my head about standing up for myself. Her words, not mine. Emily held up her hands defensively. "I think it's cute. Very indie rom-com." She pulled out a dress I'd forgotten I owned. This is what you're wearing." An hour later, I was sitting at the Mitchells' enormous dining table, feeling like an actor who'd wandered onto the wrong stage. The house was a sprawling colonial, every surface covered with family photos and sports trophies. Patricia Mitchell presided over the chaos like a general commanding troops. "More wine, dear." Patricia topped off my glass before I could answer. "Evan tells me you live alone in that cute little apartment downtown. Doesn't it get lonely?" "I actually enjoy." "Mom, the lasagna smells amazing," Evan interrupted, squeezing my hand under the table. I couldn't tell if he was being supportive or silencing me. "Family recipe," Patricia beamed. "I've been teaching Emily, of course. Every Mitchell woman needs to know it." "Speaking of which, Marley, do you cook?" "Some," I managed, taking a larger sip of wine than intended. "My grandmother taught me." "Oh, that's right," Patricia cut in. "You were raised by your grandmother. Such a shame about your parents. But you have us now. We're practically your family already." The room fell silent except for the clink of Lucas's fork against his plate. He caught my eye across the table and gave me a look I couldn't quite read. Actually, Gerald spoke up from the end of the table. "Maybe we should let Marley tell us about herself instead of assuming." "Gerald, please," Patricia waved him off. "Family doesn't need formalities. Emily, tell Marley about the wonderful volunteer work you've been doing at the church. Maybe she'd like to join you." I felt the walls closing in as Emily launched into a detailed description of the church bake sale committee. Evan's hand tightened on mine, but instead of comfort, it felt like a trap. "And of course," Patricia continued, "you'll join us for Sunday dinners. Every week, no exceptions. Family tradition." "I usually work Sundays," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The bookstore." "Oh, surely you can find someone else to cover." Patricia laughed as if I'd told a charming joke. "Family comes first, always." "Right, Evan." I turned to look at my boyfriend, hoping he'd say something, anything, to help me breathe. Instead, he smiled that same charming smile that had first drawn me in at the bookstore. "Of course, Mom. I'm sure Marley can rearrange her schedule." That's when I saw it, the same look in his eyes that I'd seen in Emily's earlier. Behind the smiles and the charm, there was something almost desperate, like drowning people clinging to a life raft. "Dessert," Patricia announced, rising from the table. "Emily, help me bring out the plates. Marley, you sit right there. You're a guest. For now." As soon as Patricia and Emily left the room, Lucas leaned forward. "Run," he whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. When I stared at him in shock, he quickly looked down at his plate, but I caught the warning in his eyes. The evening stretched on like a rubber band being pulled too tight, and I couldn't shake the feeling that when it snapped, everything would change. I just didn't know yet if I'd be the one breaking free or getting caught in the recoil. The sound of running water woke me at 2 a.m. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, until I heard humming coming from my bathroom. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd started keeping beside my bed and crept down the hallway, my heart thundering in my chest. "Oh, hey," Emily's voice chirped as I pushed open the bathroom door. She was wearing a face mask and had transformed my normally tidy counter into a makeshift spa. "I couldn't sleep, and I knew you had that amazing Korean skincare stuff. Hope you don't mind." I lowered the bat, my hands shaking. "Emily, it's the middle of the night." "I know, right? But Mom and Dad were fighting again, and Evan's working late, so I thought." She trailed off, finally seeming to notice my expression. "What's wrong? You can't just come into my apartment whenever you want." "But we're family now." She started rummaging through my medicine cabinet. "Oh my God, is this prescription anxiety medication? Does Mom know you're on these?" Something snapped inside me. I grabbed the bottle from her hands. "Get out." "Marley, I'm just trying to." Now, the drive to Evan's office was a blur. I found him exactly where I knew he'd be, not working late at all, but sitting at Murphy's bar with Lucas, both of them nursing whiskeys. "We need to talk," I said, sliding onto the bar stool next to him. "About boundaries." "Babe." Evan's smile was loose from alcohol. "Join us." Lucas was just saying. Emily broke into my apartment again. At 2 a.m. Lucas winced and suddenly became very interested in his drink. "She didn't break in," Evan laughed. "She has a key, remember? A key you gave her without asking me." I could hear my grandmother's voice in my head. "Your space is sacred, Marley. Never let anyone violate it." "Come on, you're overreacting." "Emily's just being friendly," Mom says. "I don't care what your mother says." The words came out louder than I intended. A few heads turned our way. "This isn't about your mother. It's about you giving away access to my home without my permission." "Our home," he corrected, his charm slipping for the first time. "That's what families do, Marley. We share everything." "Why are you being so difficult about this?" "Evan," Lucas warned quietly. "No, I want to know," Evan continued, turning to face me fully. "Is this because you didn't have a real family growing up? Is that why you're so weird about everything?" The bar seemed to go silent. I felt the words like a physical blow. "My grandmother was more family than your mother will ever be," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "She taught me about respect, about boundaries, about not letting people steamroll over you just because they claim to love you." "Marley," Lucas started, but I cut him off. "You know what's happening here, don't you, Lucas? You tried to warn me at dinner." I turned back to Evan. "I want my key back. Now. Don't be ridiculous. You're upset. We'll talk about this tomorrow when you're thinking clearly." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "The key, Evan." "Fine." He pulled out his wallet and slapped the key on the bar. "But you're making a big mistake. Nobody else is going to put up with your issues." As I picked up the key, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Mom says you're being hysterical. She's calling a family meeting tomorrow to discuss your attitude. We're all worried about you. Red heart." Another buzz. "By the way, I might have accidentally mentioned your meds to her. She's really concerned. We just want to help." I looked at Evan, still seeing that charming smile that had first drawn me in, but now I saw what lay beneath it, the need to control, to conform, to consume. "You're right about one thing," I said, standing up. "I didn't have a real family growing up. I had something better. I had someone who taught me my worth." As I walked out of the bar, I could feel both brothers watching me. But it was Lucas's quiet, "good for you," that followed me into the night, along with the certainty that this was far from over. The Mitchells didn't let go of what they considered theirs. And somehow, without my permission, I had become their property. I spent the next morning changing my locks, but it didn't matter. The Mitchells had already found other ways in. First came the flowers, enormous arrangements delivered to the bookstore every hour, each with increasingly desperate notes from Evan. "We need to talk. You're being irrational. Mom's really worried about you." By noon, my tiny office looked like a funeral home. Then the calls started. Patricia's name flashing on my phone every 30 minutes. I let them go to voicemail, each message more concerned and controlling than the last. "Marley, dear, we're all gathering for an intervention, a family meeting. Your behavior is concerning." Emily told me about the anxiety medication. You clearly need our help. I was shelving books in the psychology section when Lucas appeared, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. They sent you to check on me? I asked, not looking up from my task. Actually, I came to warn you. He glanced around before continuing. Mom's planning something. She's convinced Evan you're having some kind of breakdown. Of course she is. I shoved a self-help book into place with more force than necessary. Because anyone who wants privacy must be mentally ill, right? There's more. Lucas lowered his voice. She's talking about calling your employer, expressing concerns about your stability. She knows the owner from church. My hands froze on the spine of a book. She wouldn't. She would. She's done it before. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. Look, there's something you should know about Evan's ex. The store's bell chimed, and Emily burst in, followed by Evan and Patricia. My stomach dropped as I saw Patricia clutching what looked like medical papers. There you are, sweetheart, Patricia's voice dripped with concern. We've been so worried. Dr. Harrison was kind enough to squeeze you in for an emergency appointment this afternoon. What? I stepped back, bumping into the bookshelf. I called in a favor, Patricia smiled. He's an excellent psychiatrist. The same one who helped Emily through her difficult phase. Emily shifted uncomfortably. Mom, maybe we should. Not now, Emily. Patricia's smile never wavered. Marley, dear, we've all noticed the signs. The isolation, the paranoia about your space, the medication. Stop. My voice shook. You have no right. I have every right, Patricia cut in. We're family. And families take care of each other, whether they want it or not. I looked at Evan, waiting for him to defend me. Instead, he stepped forward with that same concerned expression I'd seen at the bar. Babe, we're worried about you. Just come to the appointment. For me. For the family, Patricia added. That's when I saw it, the same look in all their eyes, except Lucas's. They truly believed they were helping me. They'd twist anything I said or did to fit their narrative of me being unstable. I thought about my grandmother's last words to me. Sometimes the kindest people can be the most dangerous, Marley. They'll try to help you to death. No, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I'm not going anywhere with you. See, Patricia turned to Evan. This is exactly what happened with Rebecca. The paranoia, the resistance to family involvement. And we all remember how that ended. Rebecca? I looked at Lucas, who couldn't meet my eyes. Mom, Evan warned, but Patricia continued. Your brother's ex-wife. Another troubled soul who couldn't appreciate our family's love. She ended up having to leave town after her. Episodes. The pieces clicked into place. Lucas's warning at dinner, his attempt to tell me something just now. This wasn't the first time they'd done this. Get out, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. All of you. Or I'm calling the police. Marley, Evan started. Now. They left, Patricia already on her phone, probably calling Dr. Harrison. But Lucas lingered. Rebecca moved to Seattle, he whispered. I'll text you her number. And Marley? Change your phone. They're tracking your location through Evan's family plan. As he left, I stood in my fortress of books, realizing that changing the locks had never been enough. I needed to change everything. The Mitchells wanted to help me to death. Fine, let them try. But first, I needed to talk to Rebecca. Rebecca's voice crackled through my new burner phone. So they're doing it again. The concerned family routine, the medical interventions, the tracking. How did you handle it? I asked, pacing my apartment, checking windows for the third time that evening. I didn't. I ran. She paused. But you're smarter than I was. You're asking questions. Before I could respond, I heard voices in the hallway. My heart stopped when I recognized Patricia's commanding tone. I crept to my door and looked through the peephole. The entire Mitchell family stood there, arms loaded with decorations and food. Emily was hanging a "Welcome Home" banner across my hallway. Rebecca, I have to go, I whispered. They're here. Remember what I told you about documentation. And Marley? Don't let them. The key turned in my lock. I'd forgotten about the building's maintenance key that Emily had somehow borrowed. Surprise. The door burst open, and the Mitchells flooded in like an invading army. Patricia led the charge, followed by Emily with balloons, Gerald with chairs, and Evan carrying what looked like his suitcases. "What is this?" I backed away as they began rearranging my furniture. "We decided enough is enough," Patricia announced, already hanging family photos on my walls. "Evan's moving in to keep an eye on you." Dr. Harrison agreed it's for the best. I never saw Dr. Harrison. My voice sounded distant, even to myself. "Because you're in denial, dear." Patricia patted my cheek. "But don't worry. We're taking care of everything." Evan started unpacking his bags into my dresser while Emily rearranged my kitchen cabinets. "You'll love having company," she chirped. "Being alone isn't healthy." I watched in horror as they dismantled my life piece by piece. My books were being boxed up too. Make room for more family photos. My grandmother's antique reading chair was pushed into a corner to accommodate Patricia's oversized armchair that Gerald was assembling. "Stop," I whispered, but nobody heard me. "Oh, and we're hosting Sunday dinner here this week," Patricia continued. "I've already invited the entire extended family. Emily, make sure you have a key made for Aunt Sarah." I said stop. The word tore from my throat. The room fell silent. Even Patricia looked startled. "This is my home," I said, my voice shaking. "Get out. All of you." "Marley," Evan stepped toward me. "You're having another episode. Let us help." "Help." I laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical even to me. "Like you helped Rebecca?" The room temperature seemed to drop. Patricia's smile turned brittle. "Lucas told you about her?" Evan's voice was dangerously quiet. "She told me herself." I pulled out my phone, letting them see I was recording. "Just like she told her lawyer, her therapist, and the police about how your family systematically isolated her, gaslight her, and tried to have her committed when she refused to comply. You've been conspiring against us?" Patricia's mask finally cracked. "After everything we've done for you?" "Done to me," I corrected. "And I'm not the only one documenting this." "Check your phone, Patricia. Your conversation with Dr. Harrison about fabricating mental health concerns? It's already been forwarded to the medical board." Emily dropped a plate. It shattered in the silence. "You wouldn't dare," Patricia whispered. "Try me. Now get out of my apartment, or the next call I make is to my lawyer." They left, taking their decorations but leaving chaos in their wake. Only Evan lingered. "You've changed," he said softly. "No. I just stopped pretending to be who you wanted me to be." After they were gone, I stood in my violated space, surrounded by the remnants of their invasion, moved furniture. Holes in my walls from their photos, my books in boxes. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "They're planning something bigger. Be careful." I looked at my grandmother's chair, shoved into the corner like an unwanted memory, and made my decision. The Mitchells wanted war? Fine. But first, I needed to make sure they could never do this to anyone else again. I picked up my phone and dialed Rebecca back. "Tell me everything," I said. "And then help me take them down." The email from my boss arrived at 3 a.m. "Due to concerns about your recent behavior and mental health, we're placing you on indefinite leave." The board received some disturbing information. I didn't need to read further. Patricia's influence had reached farther than I'd expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Mom's talking to your landlord now. Claims she's your emergency contact. Be ready." I spent the next hour packing essentials into my grandmother's old suitcase, my hands shaking as I worked. Rebecca's warnings echoed in my head. "They'll try to trap you with kindness. Cut off your options one by one until you have nowhere else to go but them." A knock at the door made me freeze. Through the peephole, I saw Emily alone and crying. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, mascara running down her face. "I didn't know they'd go this far. Mom's convinced everyone you're having a breakdown. She's even contacted your bank." My blood ran cold. I grabbed my laptop, hands trembling as I tried to log into my account. "Access denied." "They're doing this to help you," Emily continued, wringing her hands. "Maybe if you just talk to Dr. Harrison." "Get out." "Marley, please. We're worried." "Worried?" I laughed, the sound harsh in my throat. "You're not worried about me. You're worried about losing control." My phone buzzed again. A voicemail from my landlord. Miss Taylor, we've received concerning reports. Your lease agreement clearly states immediate evaluation required. The walls seemed to close in. I looked around my apartment, my sanctuary turned prison, and saw the Mitchell family's fingerprints everywhere. The holes in the walls from their photos. The rearranged furniture. The boxes of my books still unpacked. They're coming, Emily whispered. Mom, Dad, Evan. They're bringing Dr. Harrison here. They have papers. Papers? For temporary guardianship. Until you're better. The room spun. This was how they'd trapped Rebecca, legal manipulation masked as concern, cutting off resources until submission seemed like the only option. I grabbed my suitcase and pushed past Emily, but she caught my arm. Wait, where are you going? Let go of me. I can't. Mom said not to let you leave. It's for your own good. I yanked my arm free with enough force to send Emily stumbling. As I ran down the hallway, I heard voices coming up the stairs, Patricia's commanding tone, Evan's placating murmur. An unfamiliar voice presumably belonging to Dr. Harrison. The fire escape was my only option. I climbed out my kitchen window, the metal grating cold under my feet. 3 stories up, wind whipping at my clothes, I heard my apartment door open. Marley? Evan's voice. Baby, we're here to help. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Check the fire escape, Patricia commanded. I started climbing down, the rusty metal creaking beneath me. My suitcase banged against the railings, each clang announcing my escape attempt to the whole neighborhood. There she is. Emily's voice from above. I looked down. 2 stories left. 1 story. I could make it. Going somewhere? Lucas stood at the bottom of the fire escape, but instead of stopping me, he held out his hand. My car's around the corner. I'll take you wherever you need to go. Why? I whispered, frozen between escape and capture. Because someone should have helped Rebecca. And because I'm tired of watching Mom destroy people in the name of love. Above us, feet thundered down the fire escape. Time was up. Trust me, Lucas said. Or don't. But decide now. I took his hand and jumped the last few feet, my grandmother's suitcase clattering behind me. As we ran toward his car, I heard Patricia's voice ring out. Lucas Mitchell, don't you dare help her escape. This is family business. Family business. The words followed us as we sped away, along with the weight of knowing this wasn't over. The Mitchells wouldn't let me go easily. And now I was running, just like Rebecca had. But unlike Rebecca, I wasn't running away. I was running towards something bigger, the chance to expose them, to stop this from happening to anyone else. If I survived what came next. Lucas's safe house turned out to be a small cabin by the lake, the kind of place my grandmother would have loved. I spent 3 days there, working with Rebecca via encrypted chat, piecing together years of the Mitchells' manipulation patterns. Other victims started emerging, not just partners, but friends, colleagues, anyone who'd threatened their family's perfect image. The text from Emily came at sunset. Mom's in the hospital. Heart attack. She's asking for you. It's a trap, Rebecca messaged when I forwarded the text. That's how they got me to come back. But then Lucas called. It's real, Marley. And there's something you need to see. I found Patricia in a private room, looking smaller somehow without her usual armor of perfectionism. Evan sat beside her, but it was Emily who caught my attention, standing in the corner, clutching a familiar-looking journal. My grandmother's diary, I said, recognizing the worn leather cover. You took it from my apartment. I found it when we were moving your things, Emily whispered. You need to read the last entry. Patricia stirred. Don't. But Emily was already handing me the diary, open to a page dated just weeks before my grandmother died. Patricia Mitchell came by today, demanding as ever, wanting to know if I'll sell the bookstore to her husband's development company. When I refused, she threatened to have my fitness as Marley's guardian investigated. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. The room spun. You knew my grandmother? She was. Obstacle, Patricia said weakly. The store was prime real estate. She wouldn't sell. Wouldn't conform. Just like you. So you waited until she died to get to me? My voice shook. Send Evan to charm his way in, to make me part of the family so you could control what happens to the store? Mom, Evan started, but Patricia cut him off. Everything I did for this family. The store's location is worth millions. Your grandmother was selfish, keeping it as some dusty book haven when it could have secured our family's future. Selfish? I laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. My grandmother built that store from nothing. She raised me there after my parents died. She taught me that real family doesn't control, it supports. You don't understand. Evan reached for my hand. No, you don't understand. I pulled away. I'm not here to play happy families anymore. I'm here to finish what my grandmother started. I pulled out my phone, showing them the screen. Meet your family's legacy, Patricia. Dozens of people you've manipulated, controlled, and gaslight over the years. All of them ready to tell their stories. To the media, to lawyers, to anyone who'll listen. You wouldn't. Patricia struggled to sit up. We're family. Family? Emily's voice cracked. Is that what you call this? Manipulating everyone? Using me to spy on Marley? Using Evan to seduce her for a real estate deal? Emily quiet, Patricia snapped. No. Emily moved to stand beside me. I'm done being quiet. Done being your spy. Done watching you destroy people's lives for your twisted idea of family. Lucas? Patricia turned to her eldest, who'd been silently watching from the doorway. It's over, Mom, he said softly. The lawyers are already involved. The development deal, the manipulation, the false medical reports, all of it comes out unless you sign over your shares in the family company. To us. Today. Patricia's face went pale. You planned this? My own children. We learned from the best, Emily said, her voice steady despite her tears. Family first, right? I looked at Evan, seeing him clearly for the first time, not the charming man I'd fallen for, but a puppet dancing to his mother's strings. The store stays as it is, I said. A memorial to real love, real family. The kind that builds up instead of tearing down. You'll regret this, Patricia whispered. No, I replied, taking my grandmother's diary from Emily. I'll heal from this. And so will everyone else you've hurt. As I walked out of the hospital room, Emily and Lucas fell into step beside me. Behind us, I heard Evan's footsteps, hesitant, then stopping altogether. Some families you're born into. Others you choose. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is walking away from those who confuse control with care. 6 months later, I stood in the corner bookmark, watching the morning sun filter through the newly restored stained glass windows. My grandmother had always said books were portals to other worlds. She never mentioned they could be shields too. The bell above the door chimed. Rebecca walked in, looking nothing like the haunted woman I'd first spoken to on the phone. Behind her, Emily carried a box of her old journals, evidence of her own journey through the Mitchell family maze. The support group's getting bigger, Rebecca said, setting up chairs in our reading nook. 3 more people came forward last week. The store had become more than just a bookshop. Every Wednesday evening, survivors of family manipulation gathered here, sharing stories between the shelves my grandmother had built. Healing, 1 page at a time. Emily arranged cookies on a plate, her hands steady now. Mom's starting therapy next week. Real therapy, not just Dr. Harrison's rubber stamps. Dad's going too. And Evan? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Still in denial. But Lucas says he's asking questions. Starting to see the patterns. I nodded, running my fingers along my grandmother's diary on the counter. The last page still made me smile, not the entry about Patricia's threats, but the hidden note I'd found tucked in the binding. My dearest Marley, if you're reading this, they've finally made their move. Remember, strength isn't in never being broken, but in how we rebuild. The store isn't just bricks and books, it's proof that some things can't be bought or controlled. Your heart is the same way. Guard it well, but never close it completely. Love, Graham. The support group members started arriving, each carrying their own stories of family bonds turned to chains. As they settled in, I noticed a new face, Gerald Mitchell, standing uncertainly in the doorway. I hope it's okay, Emily whispered. He wanted to understand. I gestured him in, watching as he took a seat next to Rebecca. Healing wasn't just for the victims, I'd learned. Sometimes the witnesses needed it too. I found more photos, Emily said later as we closed up. She pulled out an envelope. From when Mom first tried to buy the store. Look at this one. The photograph showed my grandmother standing proudly in front of the corner bookmark, a much younger Patricia Mitchell beside her. They were both smiling, genuine smiles, before ambition and control poisoned everything. She wasn't always like this, Emily said softly. Sometimes I wonder if we could. One day at a time, I reminded her, echoing what we'd learned in our Wednesday meetings. Change starts with acknowledgement. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Mom asked about you today. Actually asked, didn't demand. Progress? Maybe. But I'd learned that hope and boundaries weren't mutually exclusive. The store remained mine, protected now by legal documents and public support. The Mitchells' development plans had been permanently shelved, their company restructuring under Lucas's more ethical leadership. I locked up for the night, pausing to straighten the new sign in the window, the corner bookmark where every story matters. Below it, a smaller notice, Wednesday evening support group, all welcome. Walking home, I passed the coffee shop where Evan and I had had our first date. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of him sitting alone, reading a book I recognized from our self-help section. He didn't see me, and I didn't stop. Some stories don't end with perfect closure. Some families never fully heal. But as I climbed the stairs to my apartment, my sanctuary, still mine, I realized that maybe that's okay. Real life isn't about perfect endings, but about choosing which stories we carry forward. I found one last surprise waiting in my mailbox, a card from Patricia. Inside, just 2 words, I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. It might never be enough. But as I added it to my grandmother's diary, I smiled, knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in building something they can never touch, your own unshakable sense of self. The end.
The sound of shattering glass jolted me awake. I bolted upright, my heart pounding. Hank stirred beside me, his eyes fluttering open. "Amy, what's wrong?" he mumbled, still half asleep. "I heard something break downstairs," I whispered, already swinging my legs over the side of the bed. "I'm going to check it out." Hank sat up, suddenly alert. "Wait, I'll come with you." We crept down the stairs, the old wood creaking beneath our feet. As we rounded the corner into the living room, I gasped. Hank's father, George, was sprawled on the floor, surrounded by shards of glass from a broken vase. "Dad!" Hank rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. "Dad, can you hear me?" I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "Yes, we need an ambulance," I said, my voice trembling. "My father-in-law? He's collapsed." The next few hours passed in a blur of sirens, paramedics, and the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room. Hank paced back and forth, his face etched with worry. I sat with my hands clasped tightly in my lap, watching the second hand of the clock tick by agonizingly slowly. Finally, a doctor emerged, his expression grave. "Mr. Thompson?" he asked, looking at Hank. Hank nodded, his face pale. "How's my father?" The doctor's words hit us like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, but your father didn't make it. He suffered a massive heart attack. We did everything we could, but—" I stood up, wrapping my arms around Hank as he swayed on his feet. "No," he whispered. "No, this can't be happening." The drive home was silent, the weight of our loss hanging heavy in the air. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw 2 figures silhouetted in the doorway, Edna, Hank's mother, and Lila, his younger sister. Edna rushed towards us as we got out of the car, her face streaked with tears. "Is it true?" she demanded. "Is George really—" Hank nodded, unable to speak. Edna let out a wail of anguish, collapsing against him. Lila stood frozen on the porch, her eyes wide with shock. As we made our way inside, I couldn't help but notice the state of the house. Dishes were piled high in the sink, clothes strewn across the living room. It was clear that Edna had been struggling to keep up with things, even before this tragedy struck. "What are we going to do?" Lila asked, her voice small and frightened. "Dad handled all the finances. We don't even know where to start." I exchanged a glance with Hank, seeing the same realization dawn in his eyes. His family needed help, and we were the only ones who could provide it. "We'll figure it out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Maybe we should think about moving in for a while, just until things settle down. Hank squeezed my hand gratefully. Are you sure, Amy? That's a big ask. I nodded, pushing down the flicker of unease in my stomach. Of course. We're family. We'll get through this together. Edna looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but calculating. Yes, she said slowly. Yes, that would be for the best. You two can take the guest room upstairs. As we climbed the stairs to start packing some of our things, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stepped onto a path I couldn't easily leave. But looking at Hank's grief-stricken face, I knew I'd made the right choice. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them as a team. Little did I know, as I folded our clothes into suitcases, that this decision would test the very foundations of our marriage and change our lives forever. The first rays of sunlight crept through the dusty curtains, rousing me from a fitful sleep. I stretched, my back aching from the unfamiliar mattress. 2 weeks had passed since we'd moved in with Hank's family, and I still felt like a stranger in this house. I padded downstairs, hoping to grab a quick cup of coffee before everyone else woke up. To my surprise, Edna was already in the kitchen, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. Good morning, Amy, she said, her tone clipped. I'm glad you're up. There's a list of chores on the fridge that need doing today. I blinked, caught off guard. Oh, sure, I can help out, but I was planning to start looking for a job today. We can't rely on our savings forever. Edna's eyes narrowed. A job? Don't be ridiculous. There's more than enough work to be done here. Lila and I can't manage everything on our own. Before I could respond, Hank stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed and yawning. Morning, ladies, he mumbled, kissing my cheek. Edna's demeanor instantly changed. Oh, Hank, darling, did you sleep well? Sit down. I'll make you some breakfast. I watched, dumbfounded, as she bustled around the kitchen, fawning over her son. The list of chores was forgotten as she piled Hank's plate high with pancakes and bacon. Mom, you don't have to do all this, Hank protested weakly. Nonsense, Edna cooed. You're working so hard to sort out your father's affairs. It's the least I can do. I cleared my throat. I can make breakfast tomorrow, Edna. Give you a break. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, I'm sure you have your hands full with other things, dear. Now why don't you get started on that list? Swallowing my frustration, I grabbed the list from the fridge. It was long, impossibly long for one person to complete in a day. I glanced at Hank, hoping he'd say something, but he was engrossed in his breakfast, oblivious to the tension in the room. As I started on the first task, scrubbing the bathroom tiles, Lila sauntered in, still in her pajamas. Oh, good, you're cleaning, she said, perching on the edge of the bathtub. Make sure you get behind the toilet. It's been ages since anyone did a proper job in here. I gritted my teeth. Lila, why don't you help? It would go faster with 2 of us. She laughed as if I'd told a particularly funny joke. Oh, Amy, I have to get ready for my job interview, remember? Not all of us can afford to be homemakers. The words stung more than I cared to admit. I watched her flounce out of the bathroom, my hands clenched around the scrub brush. The day dragged on, a blur of cleaning, cooking, and biting my tongue. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted and on edge. Hank found me in the laundry room, folding what felt like the 100th load of the day. Hey, you okay? He asked. Concern etched on his face. You've been quiet all day. I forced a smile. Just tired. It's been a long day. He wrapped his arms around me, and for a moment, I let myself relax into his embrace. I know this isn't easy, he murmured, but it's temporary, I promise. Once we get Dad's estate sorted out, things will get better. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. How could I tell him that his mother and sister were treating me like a servant? That I felt trapped and suffocated in this house? Just then, Edna's voice rang out from the kitchen. Amy, where are you? Dinner won't make itself, you know. Hank chuckled. You'd better go. You know how Mom gets when she's hungry. As I watched him walk away, whistling cheerfully, a realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't temporary. This was my new reality. And if I didn't find a way to stand up for myself soon, I'd disappear completely under the weight of Edna and Lila's demands. With a deep breath, I squared my shoulders and headed to the kitchen. Something had to change, and soon. I just hoped I had the strength to make it happen. The acrid smell of burnt toast jolted me awake. I rushed downstairs, my heart pounding, only to find Edna standing in the smoke-filled kitchen, a scowl etched on her face. "Amy," she snapped. "Where have you been? Look at this mess." I bit back a retort. It was barely 7 a.m. and I'd been up until midnight doing laundry. "I'm sorry, Edna. I'll clean it up right away." As I scraped the charred remains into the trash, Edna hovered behind me. You know, when Hank was growing up, I always had a hot breakfast ready for him, every single morning. The implication was clear. I wasn't measuring up to her standards. "I'll do better tomorrow," I promised, though the words tasted bitter on my tongue. Just then, Hank stumbled into the kitchen, yawning. "Morning, everyone. What's for breakfast?" Edna's demeanor changed instantly. "Oh, darling, Amy burnt the toast. Why don't I whip you up some eggs?" I watched, seething silently, as Edna fussed over Hank. He seemed oblivious to the tension, chatting about his plans for the day. As Hank left for work, Edna turned to me, her eyes cold. "The gutters need cleaning. Lila's too busy with her job search, so you'll have to do it." I stared at her in disbelief. "Edna, I've never cleaned gutters before. It could be dangerous." She waved dismissively. "Nonsense. There's a ladder in the garage. Just be careful not to scratch the siding." Hours later, I found myself perched precariously on the ladder, scooping out handfuls of soggy leaves. My arms ached, and my back screamed in protest. "Amy!" Lila's voice startled me. I nearly lost my balance. "When you're done up there, can you iron my blouse? I have another interview tomorrow." Before I could respond, she disappeared back into the house. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. That evening, as Hank and I got ready for bed, I decided to broach the subject. "Honey, don't you think your mom and Lila are being a bit demanding?" Hank looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "They're just trying to keep the house running smoothly." I took a deep breath. "It feels like I'm doing everything, Hank. Your mom criticizes me constantly, and Lila treats me like her personal maid." He frowned. "Come on, Amy. They're grieving. We need to cut them some slack." "But what about me?" I protested. "I'm trying my best, but nothing I do is ever good enough." Hank sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, I know it's not easy, but they're my family. Can't you just try to get along? For me?" His words hit me like a slap. I turned away, blinking back tears. "Sure, Hank. Whatever you say." The next morning, I found a note from Edna on the kitchen counter. "Amy, we're hosting a memorial luncheon for George this Saturday. I need you to clean the house top to bottom and prepare food for 30 people. Here's the menu." I stared at the extensive list, my heart sinking. How was I supposed to do all this in just 3 days? As I started gathering cleaning supplies, Lila breezed in. "Oh good, you saw Mom's note. Don't forget to pick up my dry cleaning while you're out shopping for ingredients." Something inside me snapped. "Lila, I can't do everything. Why don't you help with the preparations?" She looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. "Me? But I'm still in mourning, Amy. How could you be so insensitive?" I watched her flounce out of the room, my hands shaking with suppressed rage. This was getting out of control. That night, I lay awake long after Hank had fallen asleep. I knew I should tell him how bad things had gotten, but the thought of forcing him to choose between me and his family was unbearable. As I stared at the ceiling, a chilling realization washed over me. If I didn't find a way to stand up for myself soon, I might lose myself completely in this house of emotional manipulation and endless demands. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow, I'd start looking for a job. It was time to reclaim some semblance of independence before it was too late. The aroma of freshly baked bread enveloped me as I stepped into Sweet Delight's bakery. It was my first day back at work, and the familiar scent brought a smile to my face for the first time in weeks. "Amy, welcome back." Marge, the owner, greeted me warmly. "We've missed you around here." I tied on my apron, feeling a sense of purpose I hadn't experienced since moving in with Hank's family. "Thanks, Marge, it's good to be back." As I kneaded dough and decorated cakes, the tension that had become a constant companion slowly melted away. Here, I wasn't just Hank's wife or Edna's daughter-in-law. I was Amy, the talented baker who could make buttercream roses bloom with a flick of her wrist. When I returned home that evening, the house was eerily quiet. I found Edna in the living room, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "The laundry's piled up, and we had to order takeout for dinner." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I went back to work at the bakery, Edna. I told you I was planning to look for a job. Her eyes narrowed. A job? But who's going to take care of the house? Lila and I can't do everything ourselves. I'm still happy to help out, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But we need the extra income, and honestly, I need something for myself. Edna's face darkened. I see. So you're putting your selfish desires above the needs of this family. I'm sure Hank will be thrilled to hear that. Before I could respond, Hank walked in. Hear what? He asked, looking between us. Edna's demeanor changed instantly. Oh, Hank, darling, Amy's decided to abandon us and go back to work. Can you believe it? Hank's brow furrowed. Is that true, Amy? I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe now he'd see how unreasonable his mother was being. Yes, I started back at the bakery today. I thought it would be good for us financially. To my dismay, Hank's frown deepened. But who's going to take care of things here? Mom and Lila need help, Amy. You know that. My heart sank. I can still help out, Hank. It's just part-time for now. He shook his head. I don't know. Maybe this isn't the right time. We should be focused on family right now. I watched in disbelief as he walked away, effectively ending the conversation. Edna shot me a triumphant look before following him. The next few weeks were a blur of early mornings at the bakery and late nights catching up on housework. Edna and Lila's demands seemed to multiply, and Hank remained oblivious to my growing exhaustion. One evening, as I scrubbed the kitchen floor, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. I don't know why Hank married her. Edna's voice drifted from the living room. She's so selfish, putting her silly job before family. I know, Mom, Lila agreed. And did you see how she botched the laundry yesterday? My favorite blouse is ruined. We need to do something, Edna said, her voice low and determined. For Hank's sake, he deserves better than this. I sat back on my heels, my heart pounding. They were actively plotting against me. And Hank, would he believe them over me? Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Marge. Amy, I need you to open the bakery tomorrow. Early delivery coming in. Can you be here by 4 a.m.? I stared at the message, torn. If I went in early, I'd miss making Hank's breakfast. Edna would surely use that against me. But if I didn't go, I'd be letting Marge down and potentially jeopardizing my job. As I stood there, mop in hand, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could either continue trying to please everyone and slowly lose myself in the process, or I could take a stand and fight for my own happiness. With shaking hands, I typed out a response to Marge, I'll be there. Then, taking a deep breath, I walked into the living room to face Edna and Lila. It was time to set some boundaries, no matter the consequences. The alarm blared at 3:30 a.m., jolting me awake. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Hank, and crept downstairs. As I reached for my car keys, the kitchen light flicked on. And where do you think you're going? Edna's voice was cold as ice. I steeled myself. To work, Edna. I told you I have an early shift today. Her eyes narrowed. Abandoning your family again, I see. Hank will be so disappointed. I bit back a retort and left, her words echoing in my head as I drove to the bakery. Hours later, covered in flour and exhausted, I returned home to chaos. Hank was pacing the living room, looking frantic. Amy, where have you been? I've been calling for hours. Before I could explain, Edna swooped in. Oh, Hank, I told you she doesn't care about us anymore, off gallivanting while we're dealing with a crisis. My heart dropped. What crisis? What's happened? Hank ran a hand through his hair. It's Lila. She's in the hospital. She fell down the stairs this morning. Guilt washed over me. If I'd been here, I'm so sorry, I whispered. Is she okay? No thanks to you, Edna snapped. If you'd been here to help her down the stairs like you're supposed to, this never would have happened. I stared at her, incredulous. Help her down the stairs? Lila's a grown woman, not an invalid. Hank held up his hands. Enough. We need to get to the hospital. Amy, are you coming or not? The drive to the hospital was tense. When we arrived, we found Lila in a hospital bed, her arm in a cast but otherwise looking fine. Oh, Amy, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. If only you'd been there to help me. I called out, but of course you were gone. I felt Hank stiffen beside me. You called out? Why didn't you tell me that before, Lila? She batted her eyelashes. I didn't want to worry you, big brother. I know how stressed you've been lately. As Hank fussed over Lila, Edna cornered me in the hallway. I hope you're satisfied, she hissed. Your selfishness nearly cost Lila her life. Something in me snapped. That's enough, Edna. We both know Lila's faking the severity of her fall. This manipulation has to stop. Edna's face turned purple with rage. How dare you, after everything we've done for you? Our raised voices drew Hank's attention. He emerged from Lila's room, looking confused. What's going on out here? I took a deep breath. It was now or never. Hank, we need to talk, in private. We found an empty waiting room. I poured out everything, the constant criticism, the unreasonable demands, the emotional manipulation. Hank listened, his face growing more troubled with each word. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked softly. I didn't want to put you in the middle, I admitted. I know how much your family means to you. Hank was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, determination in his eyes. This ends now. I'm going to talk to Mom and Lila. Hope bloomed in my chest as I watched him stride towards Lila's room. But as he opened the door, I heard Edna's voice, thick with tears. Oh, Hank, thank goodness you're here. Amy, she said such horrible things, accusing poor Lila of lying about her fall. How could she be so cruel? I froze, realizing too late the trap I'd walked into. Hank turned to me, his eyes filled with disappointment and anger. Is this true, Amy? Did you really accuse my injured sister of lying? In that moment, I saw my marriage balanced on a knife's edge. I could backpedal, try to smooth things over, or I could stand my ground and fight for the truth, even if it meant losing everything. Taking a deep breath, I made my choice. Yes, Hank, I did, and I'll tell you why. I stood in the hospital hallway, my heart pounding as Hank's eyes bored into mine. The moment of truth had arrived, and I knew there was no going back. Hank, I began, my voice surprisingly steady, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. What's been happening in that house isn't right, and it's tearing us apart. His brow furrowed, but he nodded for me to continue. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. The constant criticism, the unreasonable demands, the emotional manipulation. With each word, I saw the confusion in Hank's eyes slowly turn to disbelief, then to anger. That's not possible, he stammered. Mom and Lila wouldn't do that. Just then, Edna's shrill voice cut through the air. Hank, come quick, Lila's in pain. We rushed back to Lila's room, where she lay dramatically clutching her side. Oh, Amy, she whimpered. If only you'd been there to help me this morning. The doctor says I might have internal bleeding. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was a new low, even for Lila. That's not true, I said firmly. I was just talking to the doctor. He said you had a minor sprain. Hank's head whipped between us, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. Edna seized the moment, her voice dripping with venom. Are you calling my daughter a liar, Amy? How dare you? The room seemed to close in around me. I could see Hank's resolve wavering, torn between his loyalty to his family and his trust in me. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice, stay and fight a losing battle or walk away to save my own sanity. I can't do this anymore, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. Then, louder, I'm leaving. The room fell silent. Hank reached for me, his eyes wide with panic. Amy, wait. But I was already moving, my feet carrying me out of the room, down the hallway, out of the hospital. The cool night air hit my face as I burst through the doors, gulping in deep breaths. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. What had I done? Where would I go? As I pulled into the driveway, I saw the lights on in the house. Edna must have called ahead. Steeling myself, I walked inside. Lila was there, her arm miraculously healed enough to fold laundry. Edna stood in the kitchen, a look of smug satisfaction on her face. Well, well, she said. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. I ignored her, heading straight for the stairs. In our bedroom, I began throwing clothes into a suitcase, my hands shaking. Amy? Hank's voice came from the doorway. What are you doing? I turned to face him, tears streaming down my face. I'm sorry, Hank. I can't live like this anymore. I love you, but I can't stay in this house another minute. His face crumpled. Please, Amy. We can work this out. I'll talk to Mom and Lila, I promise. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. He still didn't fully believe me, still couldn't see the truth about his family. I need some time, I said, zipping up my suitcase. I'll be at my sister's. When you're ready to really hear me, to see what's been happening, you know where to find me. As I walked down the stairs, suitcase in hand, Edna and Lila watched with matching expressions of triumph. But I held my head high, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. At the front door, I paused, looking back at Hank. He stood frozen at the top of the stairs, torn between following me and staying with his family. "I love you," I said softly, "but I love myself too, and I won't let anyone destroy that, not even for you." With those words, I walked out into the night, leaving behind the house that had become my prison. As I drove away, I felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The ball was in Hank's court now. Would he finally see the truth? Or had I just lost everything I held dear? 3 days had passed since I'd left Hank and his family. I sat in my sister's guest room, staring at my silent phone, willing it to ring. The waiting was excruciating, but I knew I had to stand my ground. A knock at the door startled me. My sister Sarah poked her head in. "Amy, there's someone here to see you." My heart leaped. Could it be Hank? I rushed downstairs, hope blooming in my chest, but as I reached the living room, that hope withered and died. Edna stood there, her face a mask of concern. "Oh, Amy," she cooed, "we've been so worried about you." I felt my body go rigid. "What are you doing here, Edna?" She stepped closer, her voice low. "I've come to bring you home, dear. Hank is beside himself with grief. He needs you." For a moment, I wavered. The thought of Hank in pain was almost unbearable. But then I saw the glint in Edna's eyes, the barely concealed triumph. "No," I said firmly, "I'm not going anywhere with you." Edna's facade cracked. "Now listen here, you ungrateful little—" "Is there a problem?" Sarah's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, glaring at Edna. Edna's smile returned, sickeningly sweet. "Not at all. I was just leaving." She turned to me. "Think about what you're throwing away, Amy. Hank won't wait forever." As the door closed behind her, I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Sarah sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You did the right thing," she murmured. "Stay strong." Hours later, as I lay in bed trying to sleep, my phone buzzed. A text from Hank. "Can we talk, please?" My fingers hovered over the keys. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to protect myself from more pain, but I knew we needed to have this conversation. "Tomorrow, noon, the park by the lake." The next day, I arrived at the park early, my stomach in knots. I spotted Hank on a bench, looking as haggard as I felt. "Amy," he breathed, standing as I approached. "I'm so sorry for everything." I held up a hand, stopping him. "Before you say anything else, I need you to listen. Really listen." For the next hour, I laid it all out. Every cruel comment, every unreasonable demand, every manipulation. I showed him texts and emails, recounted conversations. With each revelation, I saw the color drain from Hank's face. "I had no idea," he whispered, his voice breaking. "How could I have been so blind?" "Because they're your family," I said softly, "and you love them." Hank reached for my hand, his eyes pleading. "I love you, Amy, more than anything. Please come home. We'll face this together. I'll set boundaries, I promise." I wanted so badly to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. And what happens the next time Lila needs something, or your mother guilt trips you? Can you really stand up to them? His silence was deafening. "I can't go back to that house, Hank," I said, my voice trembling. "I won't survive it." Hank's face crumpled. Then I'll leave. We'll get our own place, start fresh." I stared at him, hardly daring to hope. "You'd do that? Leave your family?" He nodded, determination replacing the anguish in his eyes. "You're my family, Amy. You're my home. I choose you." Tears spilled down my cheeks as Hank pulled me into his arms. For the first time in months, I felt safe, loved, understood. But as we clung to each other, a chill ran down my spine. I knew this was far from over. Edna and Lila wouldn't let us go without a fight. As if on cue, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You'll regret this, Amy. No one takes my son away from me." I showed the message to Hank, watching his face harden with resolve. "We're in this together," he said firmly. "Whatever comes next, we face it as a team." I nodded, squaring my shoulders. The real battle was just beginning. But this time I wasn't fighting alone. My hands trembled as Hank and I stood on the doorstep of his childhood home. We'd come to collect our belongings and make a final stand against Edna and Lila's manipulation. The air felt thick with tension as Hank rang the doorbell. Edna answered, her face a mask of concern. "Oh, Hank, thank goodness you're home. We've been so worried." Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. "Amy, I see you've brought her back." Hank's voice was firm. "Mom, we need to talk. All of us." We followed Edna into the living room where Lila sat, her arm miraculously healed. The sight of her smug smile made my blood boil. "What's this about?" Edna demanded, her saccharine tone evaporating. Hank took a deep breath. "Amy and I are leaving, for good. We're getting our own place." The room fell silent. Then Edna laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "Don't be ridiculous, Hank. This is your home. Your family needs you." "No, Mom," Hank said, his voice steady. "What I need is to be with my wife, away from the manipulation and abuse." Lila gasped dramatically. "Abuse? How dare you, after everything we've done for you both?" I couldn't stay silent any longer. "Everything you've done? You mean like treating me like a servant? Constantly criticizing and belittling me? Faking injuries to guilt-trip us?" Edna's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little witch! You've poisoned my son against us!" She lunged at me, but Hank stepped between us. "That's enough, Mom. I've seen the truth now. The way you've treated Amy, the way you've tried to control me, it stops today." Lila burst into tears. "How can you do this to us, Hank? We're your family." "Amy is my family now," Hank replied, his voice softening. "I love you both, but I won't let you destroy my marriage." Edna's demeanor changed instantly, her voice dripping with honey. "Darling, we only want what's best for you. Amy clearly doesn't understand our family dynamics. Give it time. She'll adjust." I felt a surge of pride as Hank shook his head. "No, Mom. There's nothing to adjust to. Amy and I are leaving. We've already found an apartment across town." The shock on Edna and Lila's faces was almost comical. As Hank and I moved to gather our things, they followed, alternating between pleas and threats. "You'll regret this, Hank," Edna hissed. "When she leaves you, don't come crawling back." Hank paused at the foot of the stairs, turning to face his mother and sister. "The only thing I regret is not seeing the truth sooner. Goodbye, Mom. Lila, I hope someday you'll understand." As we loaded the last of our boxes into the car, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Hank pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered. He smiled, a mix of sadness and relief in his eyes. "I'm proud of us. It won't be easy, but we're in this together." As we drove away, I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt hope blooming in my chest. We pulled up to our new apartment, a modest one-bedroom that already felt more like home than the house we'd left behind. As we carried our boxes inside, I caught Hank looking at me, his eyes shining with love and determination. "You know," he said, setting down a box, "in a way, we should thank my mom and Lila." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and why's that?" He pulled me into his arms. "Because they showed us how strong we are together. We faced the worst and came out stronger. Nothing can tear us apart now." Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged him fiercely. He was right. We'd weathered a storm that could have destroyed us, and instead it had forged our bond into something unbreakable. As we unpacked, filling our new home with laughter and love, I realized that this wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. Hank and I had reclaimed our lives, our relationship, and our future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger and wiser for the battle we'd won. And as the sun set on our first night in our new home, I knew that the best was yet to come.